Fiatjaf and Paul Sztorc. Great having you guys on, and it's my first threesome. How are you guys?
You never forget your first.
How are you guys?
I'm good. I mean, I think a little too much Twitter. Like, Twitter is not good. Is it good for the body, or is it not? Probably not.
Well, I woke up at 7 this morning, and I saw that tweet from what's his name, Alex B, and he completely had no idea what he's talking about when it comes to Mev. I was like, reordering transactions, and then this guy's like, he completely gets the definition utterly and totally wrong, and I was just like, you've just wasted my time.
Yeah, that's exactly what I feel. Is that what I think actually happened was he realized he was completely wrong, and so he just tried. He's tried to like kind of just evade the issue.
What did he say? I missed this. Like, did he change something?
Paul can tell.
Well, so he's now saying that when he says MEV, he does not see what everyone with a brain would think when he says drive chains cause MEV. They would think, okay, drive chains let us copy altcoins. Ethereum has MEV, but Bitcoin does not. They're thinking the Ethereum MEV is somehow going to corrupt everything. That's what literally everyone with a brain would think. And so now he's just like, he's slowly morphed around, changing this definition around and around and around. And now he just literally, he said yesterday that to him, it literally just means more fees are being paid to the L1 miner. So if you were going to pay 2 cents, if you're going to pay 50 cents for your Bitcoin transaction, instead you pay 75 cents, that is now MEV. That's equal to, exactly according to him, equal to the drive chain MEV effect. It just means nothing. So, I don't know. I mean, I think look forward to more preview of coming attractions. I think as more people learn about drive chain, they will ask. They're going to ask they're going to say, why don't we have this? And then someone's going to say, well, blah blah blah. Like maybe some miners might go out of business, or they might come into business. And it's like no one has ever cared about that ever. It's all fake. It's all just fake objections. It's not real. The idea that why are people now saying drive chain is a block size increase? I think it's because, like, I try to say it gives the large blockers what they want. They really don't get, like, the core idea is if you wanted the large blocks, you have them. If you don't want them, you do not. So then they say, well, this is exactly the same as being forced to have large blocks. Like, it's the exact opposite of that. But I don't know.
No, I think the argument is that I think the large block thing is that somehow they don't understand BMM, so they think all the miners have to validate all the chains. So that's a large block size increase.
Yeah,
I've also heard one that the guy was saying that you could have an inflation on one of the side chains.
Yeah,
so
I didn't stop and decrypt. It's been around for a long time. Why does he say that? That's like literally the one thing that absolutely they can never do under any circumstances. And if people are saying stuff like that, they're saying, "Oh, what about this L2? Either have inflation." First of all, sidechains can never have inflation, because as soon as there's any inflation issue, everyone will be. It will be like It's a Wonderful Life bank run, and everyone will try to get their money out, and most people will not get the sidechain will just be obliterated, like in the very next instant. So that will never happen. And if it does, it will fix itself instantaneously, and only affect the people who opted into it. But why would like this people say something like this new thing will become more popular and it will have inflation over there? It's kind of like
so Bitcoin
there's
will
so
become
many
a
other
side chain
things
of
that could be like Coinbase, custodial Lightning, or whatever. Like no one is like where it would be 1,000 times easier for this story to play out. It's all just like cope. I have to say, I don't want to make it into like a kind of a dark thing, but the real reasons are something like, I think, like value of Blockstream stock options people who have invested in something else, like some kind of like they invest in some kind of other company, that something like that, where they will maybe lose a lot of money, or maybe a lot of these people on Twitter are just like altcoiners. The altcoiners, of course, like Vitalik doesn't really want Bitcoin to get BIP 300 and copy Ethereum into a sidechain. So I don't know, but I find it like impossible. There's no way that these people have not even read like the November 2015 post, the January 2017 post, which became BIPs 300 and 301. And it's very strange.
I don't think it's a dark motive. I think it's just stupidity. Blockchain would benefit from BIP 300 because Bitcoin would increase in value, and blockchain has a bunch of Bitcoins. And a lot of
that's
these
what I
people
think
that
also,
they
but
don't.
I think maybe they think something. Some of them think. Well, it also doesn't make any sense at all that Adam Back is like one of the longest and biggest supporters, like consistently ever since the idea was published in 2015 and discussed in 2017. He's like been the only supporter for a while, and then then we got like 20 other people. The number never goes down.
I've been seeing a lot of supporters that I didn't know existed before. Recently.
Yes, it's like.
But I think the Alex B thing, like he's like, I gave my final understanding of what he was trying to say was that if the miner, like if the Bitcoin miner can mine a block, that means he can mine a block for free. So he would have infinite profit if he was also the sidechain miner. Like he wouldn't have to pay his own opportunity cost. Like I think that's
people
his
say
reasoning.
they play with this mandatory word. Well, finish your thought.
Oh no, not the mandatory. Like if you're the sidechain miner and you're also the Bitcoin miner, that means you mine for free, something like that. That's what he means. You don't have to pay because it's yours.
He
like
really
it's
thinks
yours.
Something like he clearly thinks something along the lines of the sidechain block. Let's say main chain block is worth like $4. Sidechain block is worth $3. Total, it's worth $7. He thinks like if they vertically integrate, they get some kind of big advantage or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he's right. He's 43 byte, 143 byte output that switches the money from the person doing the bid. So you have a 1/1,000,000th the size of the block. But it like this, the whole argument is rotten to the core. It all goes down to this idea that we need to care about whether or not some miners go out of business, which is like the opposite of what it's just like mining.
Yeah, what about mining?
Always going out of business.
Yeah, what about mining with cheaper hardware or cheaper energy or whatnot? That happens. Like not all miners are mining with the same energy price.
Yeah, like so to be consistent, they would have to be tweeting every day about how it's a bad thing that Marty Bent works with Great American Mining and that they'd use the natural gas tax credit flaring, or that people who use the miner to heat their swimming pool, they should be going all around and tweeting all about how this is terrible. This is a benefit that can only accrue to people who have a swimming pool. This is causing MEV, minor extractable. It should be minor heated pool value. MHPV. This is MHPV.
And this is literally happening right now in Ethereum. Like people are hitting their pools in Ethereum too. So this will come to Bitcoin.
Will come to Bitcoin. I mean, it just blows my mind that of course, like it's mind-numbingly obvious that someone who's complaining about MEV, literally the sentences they spoke were something like, this is like Bob McElrath. Maybe Bob McElrath has some completely different thing. I'm pretty sure it's not the case. What all these people do is they just mix up the L1 and L2 over and over again, and they just can't keep it straight. They don't take out a piece of paper and just write it down. Here's the things that happen on L1. Here's things. But Bob McElrath, did he not say like last week? He was saying like Ethereum has MEV, but Bitcoin does not. But with drive chains, MEV will come to Bitcoin. Well, of course, literally everyone would think they're talking about like the MEV stuff that happens on Ethereum, the reordering of the transactions and the fact that they can like flip order books and things, and like extract more margin. But no, this whole time so I don't know, like I don't know what to do with that.
I like how Alex B tries to say all the time that we don't know, we have no idea what MEV
We have no
is,
idea
but
what MEV is.
apparently it's
Yeah,
something
we need to
very
study it.
arcane that only yeah.
No one took us up on that thing for $250. No one, which is not a ton of money, but of course we just like.
No, there was a guy that tried. I commented there, but he made a
Yeah,
he began to
Alex,
try, and
unfortunately,
then
to win, I would love it if he won, but Alex has to say that yes, this example,
yeah. But
and
the funny
he would
thing
not.
that I didn't publish was that I saw the notifications on Twitter, and he was like trying to start an example, and then he deleted the tweets. And then I asked him on Telegram, and he said, "Oh, I was trying to find the MEV, and then when I finished my example, I saw that there was no MEV, so
Oh, you
I
got to
deleted
be
the
kidding
tweet."
me. So we were
So
saying
and then he tried
Alex or
again.
the other guy?
No, the other guy that was trying.
Oh, the other guy. Oh, the other guy tried to do the example. This is literally exactly what I said would happen. Exactly. I said, if you write down the example, you'll see there is no MEV effect on anyone. There's just people earning more money in exchange for doing what they already do. That is exactly what I said. When you write down the example, you will see you're forced to keep it all clear. And so that is what that guy did. And that's what Alex is still not going to do. And he will still get it wrong until he writes the example down. But now he won't, because now he's just going to pretend like he always meant. The fact that MEV is this Google search term associated with Ethereum is just a big coincidence. That is a big coincidence that just happened to invade our Twitter conversation. And what he meant the whole time was more fees being paid on L1. So yeah, I mean, there you go. None of it really matters, because it's all like everyone is afraid. People in the technical community, they're afraid to like comment on. They don't want to stick their neck out for something. So they're all spineless, basically. Even something like this that is an optional soft fork that is like completely sanitized. They're too cowardly, and they won't actually. But not all. Many people have done the tweet, and we put them at layer2labs.com/friends. But yeah, like there's an enormous amount of cowardice in Bitcoin development, and you can see what happened with Jeremy Rubin. You can kind of see why too, because there's enormous amounts of money are at stake, like prestige. You get invited to these things. I was invited to all this type of stuff too, like earlier, like in 2017, 2018, 2016, 2015. I would get invited, and then you could just ask someone to pay. They would pay business class. They pay for your flight, pay for your hotel. You get to go all around the world to these exotic locales. You go to like a Scaling 2 in Hong Kong. That's a big deal if you're like a young person and you're like, wow, this is like really neat.
There are many
have
more
a great
conferences
time.
now,
There was like
but
we had like this big bus that at Scaling 2. We went to like this place, and there were like fireworks. There was like this huge stadium there. Yeah, it's great. So there's like all this stuff is on the line, and meanwhile everyone's trying to stack sats. So all this stuff is on the line, and people don't want to make a mistake, and they just kind of think there's no possible way that the idea is really this good. The idea that would have actually kept the large blockers and small blockers together. We wouldn't need the toxic people. So that's just like what people are going to slowly have to accept, because they may find it hard to believe, but it is basically the truth. So we have to just hunt down. I think we have to aggressively hunt down like the last fake remaining reasons, and that's why we hired Peter Todd, and I think that's money very well spent. I think based on what his Twitter activity already is, and Pete, feel free to take notes and change your strategy completely if you listen to this, which I encourage, because what it's ultimately he's going to have to do at the end of the day, years from now, maybe, I don't know when, he'll ultimately have to just admit that he was wrong up to criticize merge mining in the way that he did back in 2014. He was trying to help. Peter Todd knows probably more about Bitcoin than I do. And, I look at some of the stuff he's written. It's very clear. It's very admirable, but anyone can make a mistake, Tiger Woods can have a bad day or something. And like, so he has this idea about merge mining that is untrue, that it very significantly affects either the economics of individual miners, which is completely false for that swimming pool reason we already discussed. Miners get all kinds of benefits, costs. The bottom half get fired every 2 weeks. It's completely irrelevant. We should not care about what miners do. Or he thinks that merge mining significantly affects who can become a mining pool, which is completely wrong for a totally different reason. But it's because the economics of mining pools, the only reason pools exist is because if you have a small miner, 1/4500th the size, you'll be more than, on average, more than 31 days before you find a block. And that's just too much variance for most people to stomach. Even if on average that would be okay, that means that sometimes you're going 3 or 4 months without any revenue coming in. Meanwhile, you have to pay your costs. And meanwhile, some guy down the street, same situation as you, same costs, but they hit 2 in a row off the bat. And now they're flush with cash. So that's why pools exist. And any of these effects on like how much the pool software costs is like literally 1/100 millionth of it has literally no actual effect. That the idea that the mining pool operator might decide that they would best serve their clients by running sidechain software, running different software, fee maximizing software, MEV software, whatever. The fact that would never ever affect the optimal pool size at all. It's just not, and it's also, there's an intriguing philosophical inversion.
Isn't the BMM free? Like
the BMM means that they don't even have to do it at all anyway, right? But the thing with the BMM is, even though sidechains are defined as something that uses BIP 300 and BIP 301, drivechain is defined that way. Someone could always say something like, well, what if the sidechain designer just
but no one said that ever.
No one has been smart enough to think of that yet, but they could always say, like, what if they said that they program it in such a way, even though this isn't really possible, they program it in such a way that BMM will never work, even though it's just a hash. It's paying money on L1 for a hash. To do that, you have to make it like impossible to like hash the block on L2, which is like, but someone could say so, but no one has ever said that because they don't actually, they can't tell the difference. They don't know Fiat, as you know perfectly well, Fiatjaf. Blind merge mining and regular merge mining are mostly like, they're pretty similar, and with the exception that blind merge mining is just much more convenient for literally everyone, so that's why everyone will do it. But merge mining cannot be stopped on L1. There's no way. Paradoxically, even though it's very easy to stop most things, this is the normal philosophical paradigm is inverted, because people think, oh, we can my node filters things out on L1. So they think we can filter out.
So if there could be an argument,
there
could be an argument that merge mining without the blindness could somehow affect the incentives. But this is already possible.
It's the same thing as before, where the miners, it's up to the miners what risks they want to take in return for what financial compensation. So we should not.
Yeah, but that's already possible. And if you introduce blind merge mining, you remove that. You remove
that risk, exactly. But even without blind merge mining, it would be something like ASIC boost, where something like if they do it, then that's up to them, and they miss a couple. They have like false positives or something. But that's not an issue. The philosophical inversion I would like to highlight is that people think, what they think is they have a full node and they think this is my full node. But then if they think, oh, if I mine, I'm only a small percent of the hash rate, so I don't have as much control. They think I have less than 1%. But of course, if the Bitcoin community grows to more than 100 people, if it goes to 101 people, then someone has to go without 1% of the hash rate. So what they really want is for Bitcoin to stay like a niche thing that only 5 people have heard of or something. But the inversion is you go from the node to the miner to the pool, because now they think, oh, now I'm just a small, even though I have a huge mining warehouse, I've got to outsource my thinking to this pool. I've got to outsource my job to this pool, and they feel less powerful. But what they do not realize is that picture is completely upside down, and it always has been. The node is the one who rejects the miner's block. So the node trumps the pool in every way. The node trumps the miner in every way. And similarly, the miners they cannot like reject a block in the normal way, but for every practical sense and purpose, they can do the exact same thing because they're the ones who point their hash at the pool. At any drop of a hat, they can just say, I don't like this pool anymore. It's the philosophical equivalent of rejecting a block. They say, I reject this pool, and they can go immediately to a new pool or start a pool. And people just feel upset about these pools. They just don't realize that what they want is for there to be a room full of 101 people, and they want everyone to have at least 1% of the hash. The pool is what is doing that. The pool lets all these people mine, whereas before they would never be able to tolerate the variance. The pool is making the job easier. So it's
So
just
you're saying
the
that
whole
the
thing is
drive
upside
chain
down.
haters, they want this mining paradise or something like that.
Repeat. What did you say, Fiatjaf?
You're saying that the drive chain haters they want this mining paradise in which everybody mines.
Yeah, they
alone.
think they do, but they don't really like. So they have a lot of things completely backwards. Like one of the things that they don't like, as you now have seen, is they don't like it when there's lots and lots of revenues flowing to the miners. So they want everyone to be like a kind of like mining for free monk or something, and they only want there to be 5 miners.
I don't know
So-
if that's what they think. That's
Yeah.
hard to believe.
Well, I think they don't quite realize it, but the security budget concept, the idea of the fees flowing from the side chains to miners, that does not like entice them. They just think that is just a bad. And then what causes specialization in mining is the upward difficulty adjustments. Every 2 weeks, the bottom half of the people are fired. And that if you don't want that evolution to happen, then you have to get rid of difficulty adjustments from blocks. That is what you want. So that is what these people want. They just don't realize it. That is what they want, because they say, well, it might be difficult for someone to mine a block. But what makes it so difficult for people to mine blocks?
Well,
the
if you didn't have
adjustment is
difficulty
99.99999999999% of what makes it difficult to find a block is the upward difficulty adjustment. But we know that
if
no
we had
one
the same
seriously would
difficulty
ever
of the first block today, how many blocks we would have for each second?
if we had the hash
people
rate
would be
of the
mining.
first block.
Yeah, no. If you had
Well, I
the
think-
same difficulty, like we would have millions of
Well,
blocks
it's actually
per
quite.
second.
That's something that we could probably check without too much. But we don't really need to. We know that it would be.
Insane.
See, but this is the issue: why do we slow down the blocks? It's partly for the 21 million coin schedule, but it doesn't really make any difference, because all it would mean is that all 21 million coins would be mined sooner. It still doesn't like change the 21 million coin limit. It just says, instead of the halvings being every 4 years, they would just be like, all of them would just happen immediately. So, but that's not the real reason. The real reason
Well,
is
you get
to
lots
get
more
around this-
reorgs, won't you?
Of course, yeah. It would make it so that confirmations become proportionately less meaningful. They would mean like 1/1,000,000th of what they mean today.
It would be a huge mess. That this doesn't make sense. Doesn't make any
The
sense.
light clients would be, instead of light clients doing only 4.4 megabytes per year, which is a number that is so low, I find it like astounding, which is Satoshi's design, that you can check all the proof of work of all the headers for a whole year, 4.4 megabytes only, which is so small as to be effectively negligible. When you download the wallet to your phone, the wallet is going to be more than 40 megabytes. So the whole wallet software application is so you have a situation like that.
No one does SPV anymore. Like they do neutrino.
Well,
which
that's
is
isn't that just
you have to download a filter for each block, and then you check.
yeah,
if
but
that
that's
block
like
has your transaction.
SPV. That's like SPV plus a little bit, it's like
The
SPV,
SPV in a very much less efficient, but
it's slightly more private, but significantly more
yeah,
private
it's
way.
more private. Yeah.
Because the main downside of SPV is that you don't have a full node. You can still validate it, almost basically everything, but you have to get it from somewhere first. Someone has to give this to you. You need to find a full node somewhere. And they
Bitcoin
need to
Core I
give
think
you
doesn't
stuff.
do it anymore.
And so if you ask them, hey, did anyone send any money to such and such? Then they're going to know. They're going to think, well, I mean, I when I was back in the day, when I was like just starting my career, just commenting on Bitcoin or whatever, I thought what the SPV wallets should do is they should just randomly query. We should redo we should do the scheme so that all the transactions are numbered in every block. You should learn the maximum, and everyone should just be querying random. They should pick random numbers out of a hat instead of saying, do we have a transaction that matches this TXID? You should instead be like, do we have just query randomly so that you at least have plausible deniability. But Neutrino it was very cool, of course, but way less efficient. But that's also because, now bandwidth speeds and costs have improved enormously since 2008 when SPV was invented. Since it was,
I don't know. I know the Lightning wallets that do the neutrino stuff, they take a long time to load, and people keep trying to optimize it and make it better.
Well, still that kind of they shouldn't, because the whole point of SPV is to provide this very, very good user experience at a cost of less security. So I kind of think we should.
There are some wallets that use the Electrum thing.
Yeah, I like Electrum. Has been was like my go-to wallet for most of my Bitcoin.
Yeah, but there's the protocol that Electrum does, and it's an open thing. That's a bunch of free servers that they say are run by chain analysis, and you can query them, and they will give you everything, all the information you need.
Yeah, it is not good for privacy for the exact reason we described. You need to pair up. Every light client needs to pair up with a full node that is like a friend, and then you ask them, hey, is this transaction in a block? And then they know, they have reason to suspect that, okay, we think that, why would you ask about that unless that was your own transaction?
Yeah.
So anyway, we were talking about this because the SPV would be obliterated if we remove difficulty adjustments for blocks. So that's one thing that would be hurt. But another thing
another argument I saw.
There you go.
Sorry, go on.
Okay, I'll go then. It's if the blocks are spread out so that they take 10 minutes, but the header is only 80 bytes and the hash of the block is only 32 bytes, of which each header contains the hash of the previous block, so you can you double count for free. If you live in that situation, then it's Greg Maxwell wrote this proof a long time ago about distributed consensus being impossible, and there's a number in his proof where if you swap it with like a zero, basically, I'm speaking very loosely here. I hope no one holds me too closely to this interpretation. Although I would also be interested to learn if this was exactly the case. But I remember, this is what I remember. The proof is like, there'll always be forks or something because of, the speed of light or whatever. So what Satoshi did is he says this block that's really 1 megabyte, and instead of being a continuous thing where the bytes all just blur out, Satoshi packed them into discrete chunks called blocks. And even though the speed of light makes it so that information isn't everywhere at once, what Satoshi did was he shrunk the problem down to this tiny size. And that size is 1 80-byte header, making it around the world in less than 10 minutes. And 80 bytes is so small, and 10 minutes is so long, that it's effectively zero, basically. The odds that it will not be possible is zero. So that's the cheat. That's the hack that's the hack that made it all work. And that is what you get by slowing the blocks down to make them 10 minutes. So that's why we have upward difficulty adjustments. But no one seriously wants to do that. These are just people who are very confused. Almost everyone who's confused about drive chain, I think they just mix up L1 and L2. Because the whole thing is it's supposed to be perfect for everyone. So it's like the large block people are like, wait a minute, we don't want any large blocks touching Bitcoin. And it's like, well, the large block people look at it and they say, well, wait a minute, why do I have to move? Why am I the one who has to move to a different chain? So people mixing up L1, L2, people who don't understand that it's a good thing when miners earn more money, not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's like Peter Todd is in that. So, I mean, we could talk about Peter Todd in Merge Mining, that he's this crusade about it being difficult. So this was in the context of the block size war, and it was also in the context of him inventing something called the tree chains that he never finished. So he had a competitor to side chains. So of course he had to bash side chains, which is fair game, because
what's the deal with the tree chains? I tried to
tree
read
chains, he
about
never finished it because, and it may have been, I don't know to what extent I'm responsible for this, but he was talking about it for a while, never materialized. Where's tree chains? No one knows. People would make jokes about it. Other elite Bitcoin developers would be like, "Where is that? Oh, it's never going to arrive." And then he presented it at in a breakout session at Scaling 3. It's 3 in Milan in 2016 October. And then the whole point of it is it's all client-side validation. So it became single-use seals. But I said it became RGB probably, something like that. But then I asked this question of like, well, the whole point of doing this is so that the layer 1 nodes and the layer 1... Peter's obsession, I think, philosophically, is engineering obsession. You know how people have different engineering obsessions? Like
He
mine
gets
is
nerd
like
sniped.
giving them what they want. And his is like, he wants it to just be this blind timestamping server that doesn't have to think. And he wants to just timestamp things that he doesn't know what they are, and only the clients know. Because to him, that's O1 always. Only the end user has to do it. The irony is that sidechains are sort of more or less what that is. Because the sidechains is just as a group, we all opt in to this more expensive node.
Well, have you seen that RGB proposal, the Prime thing? Primer, it's called Prime. They want Bitcoin to morph into this Prime thing that is fully client-side validated ledger. There's not a ledger, like just these tokens that are client-side validated.
But the problem with that is, I asked him this question in the thing. I said, well, the whole point of this is that you want it to be so that no one has to validate anything they don't want to validate, or no one has to store anything they don't want to store. But the core part of Bitcoin's design is the transaction fee. So I said, well, how does the transaction fee work? Because in order for the miner to be paid in the tree chain coin, they're now going to have to be getting this for every transaction they include. They'll have to have everything. And at that point, they just have the whole history now, because every single transaction fee, they need the whole history. Yeah, and then he had like no answer to that question. And then it's worse with RGB. It's kind of like I don't know exactly how RGB has changed, so maybe it's not that. But the idea is that like you could pay someone a transaction fee like in the RGB asset. But again, in order to do that, whoever you're paying the transaction fee, they have to get like the proof. So they have to get all the proofs, all the client-side things. Because the client-side validation, unless it's changed enormously in the last 60 days or something, the way it works is you get a thing that it checks in every time that it changed hands. You get, when I send you something, I send you like a big email that has the whole chain. And I say, this is when it was created, and then here's everything that happened since, and now you're the new owner. So you get the whole email chain. So you get like a tiny blockchain of just that asset. But then as you can see where I'm going with this, hopefully, which is that in order to pay the transaction fee, they need to know if the transaction is valid, and they need to know what the fee is it's paying. So they need to get every email chain from everything. So they have just the whole blockchain again. So I don't know, like
and also the thing is that you split the assets and then merge assets, and then you inherit the entire blockchain from that.
Yeah, exactly.
From getting multiple assets and mixing
obsession
them.
of his obsession is something like the blockchain doesn't contain anything. This is what you're talking about with this Prime. It doesn't contain anything, and then everyone else, we have to back up every time we trade, and what we hold is like a kind of proof that we own the coin that we show to other people. I have another reason.
Sponsored by Amazon S3, because everybody would use that to back up.
There'd be a lot of backing up. It should be sponsored by like Dropbox or by like what is the like big backup, like what's like the one MadeSafe or whatever? And that's not the one.
Filecoin.
Filecoin. Something where you're trying to back things up, like what's it called? Like Carbonite. It should be sponsored by Carbonite or something like that. That would be like a neat but I have an interesting other, which is that I don't think that people would actually, I don't think people actually like that. People actually like there to be something where they say, this is the thing, and everyone knows that I own this coin. It's officially registered. It's like a land registry or something. If you have, because of Alan Turing's universality of computation, they have this thing where there's a code in the blockchain. It's like a file that it has to be interpreted. So it's like file.jpg, like a .jpeg versus .png. So file on the blockchain is just this tiny code. And you say, listen, here's the code, and here's my proof, and here's the RGB software. The RGB software is like the file extension. The RGB, it says interpret this and this proof as something that will say, yes, Paul owns 80 Giacomo coin. Okay? So, but the thing is, you could have a different piece of software that I think you could call RGB2 that reinterprets the same two inputs in a different way. It's just like I'll shift it over a little bit. So then it would say that, no, I don't own that asset. And in fact, the software could be arbitrarily rewritten to just say anything like, now I own 8,000 Giacomo coin, or that Giacomo coin never existed. So I don't know why they like RGB so much, but I think I'm in favor of pluralism, and I think we should try everything. But I don't think that that's, I have a guess, I have a personal feeling, I have a personal guess that people won't like RGB because they want to know that they don't want to be they don't want the responsibility for carrying around this luggage of the proof all the time. And then the proof depends on someone else having the right software to decode the proof. Whereas if all this stuff is just in the blockchain, then I think people would like that more. But it'll be in whichever blockchain you want to opt into.
Lightning Labs did. It's a copy of RGB, but they added a new thing that is, you have something, I don't know the name of the planet or universe or whatever, that is a server that anyone can run, and people can submit their proof to that server, and then they get a blockchain, like a blockchain explorer with the proofs. So everybody can start to rely on that server instead of passing proofs around. So they
this is another issue. Like, I think this was smart. I think weirdly, this is another case where Blockstream did something kind of strange, where they said people rely too much on block explorers, so they said we'll make our own block explorer. But I never understood that at all. And Fiatjaf, if you run our software, you know that what I did instead is I said, what we have to do, what we must do is the full node software must contain a block explorer. So that's what we did, of course.
The problem is that people want to see the addresses and the history in the address, and if that coin was spent or not. And you need a giant index.
Yeah. But the index isn't that bad, you know. It's actually because the block size is already so big. I think it's only a couple. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think it's only a few gigabytes more. Like currently the UTXO says like 7 gigabytes, and the full transaction index, the blockchain is like 550 or something. This is gonna be torture, but these numbers are approximately correct. This is like last time I ran a full node or whatever, but it's like. It's like 500, 600 gigabytes of block data that can all be pruned. It's like 7 gigabytes of UTXO. And then the transaction index is only like a little bit, it's not as...
No, the transaction index, but the thing that they run is an Electron server, but now there are these new ones, Electors, that is written in Rust, and whatever. People love this.
People love
and
Rust.
They use Rust is the best thing. You should write drivechain in Rust, everybody will love it. But the mempool.space and the Blockstream Explorer,
mempool.space,
they use these electors thing that indexes everything that has happened ever. Like it's not just a transaction index. It also has, if this you can't get this from a normal full node, but you can get from these electors. Like if whatever TXO was spent and to where, like they need these to make a very nice block explorer. And I can't find the numbers, but it's a lot bigger.
Yeah, but what do you think it is?
And they ship these Umbro these Umbro packages, that like whatever.
Oh yeah,
there
bro.
are
Yeah.
many others,
Yeah, I know.
and they put the main pool dot space in there. But when you run your main pool dot space in your own Umbro hardware, you don't get these things because they don't come by default. So you get a very shitty block explorer that looks like the main pool dot space, but you actually get you can't do the same things that the main pool dot space. So they sell you some fake thing.
Well, yeah.
Well,
Let's get back onto there's two topics I would like the objections that might be had. One is the Peter Todd thing, and the second one is I have, correct me if I'm wrong. I heard a story about one of the latest evangelists, which is Michael Saylor, talking about, oh no, just put Zcash on Lightning. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. Paul, is
did he
that
say
true?
that?
No,
Did
he
he say
did.
that?
Yeah, he said that. He said that.
So,
But I don't know. It was like off the cuff. It was kind of.
Oh, was it said in jest? Was it said in jest, or was
Well,
it
I
said in
think
seriousness?
no. I think he was serious, but I think it wasn't like a fully published like research paper. It was just like a little remark. But yeah, like that. We know that doesn't really make any sense at all, does it? Right?
No,
Like,
not at all. Not at all.
So it doesn't make any sense.
So like, would he be, for example, now Bitcoin's reaching the point where, he's looking at it becoming recognized by the U.S. government as an asset.
Yes.
And so there's a significant stake that he might have, and maybe he's worried that, for example, the inclusion of drive chains into Bitcoin would turn Bitcoin into a security. Do you think this is a major concern that he's got?
It. I think that's exactly. I was trying to figure him out. I was like, is he just like, because he's clearly a smart guy. He's clearly committed to Bitcoin. So I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I was like, what it is I think it's all just fear of, because he had some kind of run-in, maybe more than one, with like the SEC or whatever, himself personally. And I think that it's kind of ironic that we have these people. We have like a Roger Ver. They have these people who's like their worldview is very, very colored by one thing that which it should perhaps it should be. But I think that's his idea, is that he needs to sell Bitcoin as like a finished project that has no changing at all. And at first I thought it was just, I always thought I would tell the story about how it's the block size war taught everyone to resist all change. We resisted change. We resisted SegWit2x. And then we won the war. So that was what I kind of thought. But with him specifically, I think for most people that is the story. But with him specifically, he's comfortably landed into that little story of like, we don't need to do anything. We don't change anything. Bitcoin is finished. That's why he thinks Lightning is somehow walled off completely from this idea of like efforts of others, how we test or something. So that is why he has to always say that that Bitcoin is already a finished project and it needs absolutely nothing. Because if he were to admit that a small army of developers is merging pull requests, all the time to Bitcoin Core, if he has to tell a story where that does not affect Bitcoin, could go on without that happening, which he can kind of do if he says, well, they just do these little updates they don't really mean anything. But if there was a big update, then it would mean that back in 2019 or whatever, when he invested in Bitcoin, he was investing in security. I mean, who cares? Like, it's like, but I think that people are afraid of this. People are really, really afraid of this.
Is Michael Saylor like this leader, thought leader of people? I never see him.
Well, I think
I never see anyone.
He is a leader of. Well, Fiat, of course, he doesn't lead anyone who's been around for a long time. Everyone who's been around for a long time knows that when you're new, your first 2-3 years in Bitcoin, you have the worst opinions, most shameful opinions, and you should just keep your mouth closed. Everyone knows that. But the way Bitcoin works is, of course, since it grows so much, every time it grows, it will grow like 10x, and it will attract 10 times as many people. And as a result, 90% of the people at any given point in time are new. It's like their first year in Bitcoin. So Saylor has basically like a huge critical mass of those people, I think. And of course, people like the idea of there being a sophisticated like American businessman, CEO, former rocket scientist from MIT. They like the idea of him going around, and he's adopted many of our very good memes, and he's avoided many of our stupider memes. I don't recall him shilling like stock to flow or anything like that. That would have been really like, okay, this guy's like complete like. So he has the good memes. He's mostly avoided the bad memes. So he's actually pretty good. It's proof of work for him to have invested so much money is proof that he is committed. He does it prominently. He's pretty articulate, is he not?
Mm-hmm.
You could definitely hand it to a lot of those much dumber people. No offense, I don't want to really name the names, but we know some people he has done a little conversation with, and he does kind of crush that person, and we haven't heard from them in a while. Good riddance. So he is great, but I think he's like constantly thinking about like getting some kind of huge fine. And the Bitcoin is security, and he's something like that, I think.
Okay.
And so I think that's the only thing he really thinks about, or even if he thinks of, there's certain things he's thought about. Well, the other thing to him is he really doesn't want it to become. He wants Bitcoin to become kind of like regulated and traceable, which is also a weird breaking point between him and a lot of the other people. The more of the politically activists, like punk type people. A lot of people, so like the Zcash sidechain is like a negative for him. He doesn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Because he says I don't know exactly what he would say exactly. I would be happy to talk to him on some kind of recorded podcast or space or whatever. But I think like his idea is that this is an idea that has been in Bitcoin for a long time, which is that certain things make Bitcoin look bad, make it look like it's for crime, make it look like it's whatever, and we should just kind of we should be more sophisticated about what we emphasize. And I think that's I think he does that. I think he really does.
But also at the same time, he posts tweets or says comments about like, well, tax that, like, and he's talking about the Bitcoin trope of dropping your Bitcoin in a boating accident type thing. So there's that.
It's clearly the right answer is to care for privacy. And of course, we have to say this as well, which is that the real world is a what do you want to call Straussian place. The people don't always say what they mean. And you don't know if you live in a world where people are being like rounded up and killed or something. Like, so everyone says, oh, we love it here. Like everyone always has to say out loud that they don't care for privacy. It's only a couple autistic people who are neuroatypical enough to say, no, every single person must push for privacy as hard as we possibly can, because it is a matter of life or death, whether or not someone can say what they truthfully believe and escape retribution, invalid retribution. And that is the difference between poverty and prosperity.
Yeah. Shall we now the next sort of section I'd like to open up is flaws and issues with Lightning. But
we could do that. But should we do the Peter Todd?
Yeah, we can do But let's have a quick bathroom break if that's okay. Are you guys good with that? Great. Yo, you're back. Okay, 3, 2, 1, bang. There we go. Okay, so before we open up the Lightning, we can do the Peter Todd thing. We've spoken about Michael Saylor.
What's the Peter Todd thing?
Well, let's break apart Peter Todd. No, I'm not necessarily, but let's get to the root of what Peter Todd dislikes. What is his motivation for not understanding Bitcoin, drive chains?
Yeah, well, I mean that's a good question. I think like you saw that over the years, like he will say certain things like we can't stop this, and drive chains is a nasty attack or something, or he'll say like you're dangerous, your broken and dangerous ideas shouldn't get any attention or something. So he really, really hates the idea a lot. And
but is it just because of BMM or miners can steal?
No, it's definitely not miners can steal. Peter Todd is much too smart for that, because he knows that it's something that miners can steal only affects the people who deposit. So the miners can steal, not a lot of people fall for that. That's something that people fall for, like their first day, the first they hear about it, and it's like whatever.
Well, I
So-
think it's a much stronger, hard to defeat argument. I struggle with it myself, but
Why?
yeah.
maybe I'm too stupid, but
You're not stupid. I'll tell you that. You're not stupid. But why do you struggle with it?
well, I've been trying to convince myself that miners won't steal, but
Well,
I
it's
think
kind
it's
of like
okay.
whether
if
they do or
they
not
steal.
is not. It's not up to me. Basically, it's up to like how useful the sidechain is.
Yes.
That's the idea. It's like they're like competing restaurants. So it's like maybe you live in a world where it's really hard to run a restaurant, and most restaurants actually fail. That would be like most sidechains get stolen from. But that's not really right now. None exist at all. There's none. There's no restaurants. We all have to eat the prison food every day. We have no choice.
Yeah.
And someone says, "Listen,
Yeah,
I want to leave."
I get
Roger
the
Veer
choice
says,
argument. The
"Listen,
choice argument is
Roger Veer says, I'll make my own restaurant to cook food for myself, and I'll also sell it to other people." And then they say, "No, you're not allowed to do that." Like, people are trapped here. We're trapped on the Bitcoin core chain. There are none. So I'm not saying that it will definitely work, but fiat. Did you see the NPV calculations for the fees? If the fees are like 1.4 or something Bitcoin per
no,
block,
I didn't see that.
well, that is enough. It's like $5 to $20 billion NPV. It depends on the very aggressive interest rates and stuff. So it's debatable whether or not there's like collective action problems or other things, but the fees is worth a lot. And then the fact that if you steal from the coin, it transitions from being a multi-network, multi-blockchain coin to just being back to only a Bitcoin core coin, which you would think would make the coin worth less. It would end the
Right.
feature.
Yeah. I'm
then, of
convinced
course, we have all
by
this
these
real
arguments that they won't steal. Maybe ever.
We have all this other evidence that like people really do not. It's been very easy, for example, to attack a Bitcoin SV, very easy to attack other of the fork coins, very easy to attack you could attack the Lightning Network by blocking the Justice transaction, but no one ever really does it. So it's kind of like
you can just
Sorry?
you can like open a channel, spend the entire channel, and then rewind the channel opening, like, and get back your money.
You could.
So, yeah.
So there's lots of things.
And you could
do
that like with 75% of mining hash power over 6 months. You could just destroy
75. Yeah, you have because that's, again, people don't really realize the scale of what it takes. It's like 75% hash power over 6 months is like you have that, and that's on the table, and so it's like, what's actually happening? I think
what can you do with that?
Yeah, like a lot, like like an unbelievable amount, and you don't care about things like the market price of Bitcoin or the stream of fee revenue. Like, well, I don't know. It's kind of like assuming everything away. And instead, what people say is they worry about so many people joining this network, and instead they want to push these people onto like literally like custodial Lightning or like Fediment or something, where Fediment is going to get robbed 3 million times, but that's okay. You heard it here first, people.
Yeah, they talk about it as if it was a protocol or something, some new technology.
It's like you literally.
They say it's e-cash.
There's going to be like a literal, like, just how people are encouraged by ICOs to just like specialize and become like, we had like William Mugayar, business blockchain, and we had all these weird people, this whole food chain of like weirdos and like people running the conferences and stuff, like doing the ICOs, making the white papers. Remember they had like ICO rank, all that crap. There's going to be all this stuff if assuming that Fediment is successful, there's going to be all this stuff for that, where there's going to be like Fed rank. There's going to be people who are professional custodians, and then they will just steal the money. And this will happen many times.
So, but I don't think this is the Peter Todd line of this is more an addressing to
the Peter Todd line. The Peter Todd line to me is much more obvious to refute.
Understand.
Like, you just BMM and everything is perfect. Like you don't affect Bitcoin at all.
I know. Well, that's what I thought too. But but what Peter Todd is saying is something like some miners he's saying, and I thought I refuted it long ago, but he's saying something like some miners, you have to look at it in order to understand Peter Todd's thing. You have to look at it from his point of view, which is the
Is
wrong
he a
point of view.
communist?
Well, I'm with respect to, he's not pro miner competition apparently or something, but we'll unpack it a little bit. Where it's like Peter remembers running a node, and back in the day there was no blind merge mining because they hadn't invented it yet. But there was like, can I run a Namecoin node, which is a hassle, in order to get a little bit of money, like $5? And this, like $5 a block or something tiny. And he said, well, if I'm a big pool, then it's easier for me. I just put up this, I set up this mining. It's like everything's
buy
scaled
a new
up.
computer. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's really crazy about this is how bad it is, because Peter Todd, he divided when he said the cost splits 100 ways or 1,000 ways because the pool has 1,000 people. But he forgot to divide the benefit by 1,000 ways also. So it's exactly proportional. He thinks it's disproportional, but it's just, these are just like weird mistakes that people made long ago. And for whatever reason, they have just never been corrected because so he thinks something like, I can't, it's easier for a pool to merge mine. So this is yet another advantage the big guys have over me, and I'm going to be pushed out. And again, this is a misstatement of the whole thing. This is the 101 people can't each have 1% idea, which is that he's getting pushed out because the network is growing and growing and growing, and there's only 100 percentage points available for everyone. That's what's pushing people out. Every single person who mines is feeling this. They feel like, oh, I'm getting smaller and smaller. Well, that's because Bitcoin is becoming more successful. So it's like, that's what you want. This is exactly what is happening, is what everyone always wanted. And the pools, people rightly say, well, what if these pools misbehave? The correct frame, there's been an incorrect frame draped over everything. And it's all about, we have to care about what blah, 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 what people do. The decentralization frame is the cost of running a full node is your cost of detecting an error on the network and replying to the error. So it's all about error correction. Now, similarly, we should want to detect errors in pools. Namely, the miners themselves should want to do that. They should connect their hash rate, point their hash rate at a pool, and they should have other software that's like Pool Watch or whatever that they kind of do have, because they do the pool hopping. And they also have stuff about like block health, I believe is the official term, where they say this block could have collected 3 Bitcoin in fees, but it only collected 2.1. And then they divide it and they say, well, this is only a whatever, 70% health block or something. So that's what you want. You want error correction to be cheap always. That is what everyone wants. For L1. Like for L2, if you want to opt into something with worse error correction, but it has other benefits, then that's your affair. That's the same thing we do with everything. That's a good thing. So, but the idea is we don't want it to make what people mean when they say miner centralization. I'm the only one, I think, on planet Earth who has figured out what the definition is of mining centralization. It's the cost of detecting an error made by the mining pools and replying to it. That is the only definition that makes any sense. Some people say, so for example, Alex B, he thinks he's got people in like a gotcha moment. This is how, no offense, this is how unremarkable Alex B is, that he thinks that if the number of different pools is the metric. So if there's only one pool, then that's a bad thing. But that's not the case, because it doesn't really work like that. It's like a restaurant. It's like, what if there's only one restaurant? Well, imagine that this is the greatest restaurant in the world, and it serves the most amazing food for 1/1,000,000th of a penny, and the food comes out quickly, and it's the best service in the world. This is the optimal restaurant, and all 100 percentage points go to this place. And the mining pool never censors, which is the analogy. It never censors. It never does anything wrong. If the restaurant is perfect already, then actually you don't need a second restaurant. It's already perfect by definition. And the what makes it perfect is the turnover, of course, but it's like if you have a situation where everything's in one pool, imagine that is the only pool that does the right thing. Every other pool is censoring transactions, or maybe censoring all the transactions, or doing reorgs or something. All the other pools are bad. Well, then, but there's one that's perfect. Their behavior is perfect. They never do anything bad. Well, then that's actually a situation where you want all the hash rate pointed at that one pool, because everything else is just a mistake. So it's all about errors. It's all about errors. Which pools are making the errors? And if there's only, but of course, in practice, it's implausible to have. It's very easy to make more pools. The variance reduction thing actually, it hits there's like an optimal point. The pools, the idea that it would be a bad thing that it would be a good thing if the metric is number of pools, then all these people, Peter Todd, Alex B, they're also still wrong, because the number of pools is not something that will go down because of merged mining. It's unaffected. So if we had 10, if it was n equals 10 mining pools that each have 10%, just make it up. The fact that we weren't merge mining before, but now we are, that number is not going to change from 10 to 9 because of that. It's ridiculous, because once it reaches the scale of 1/10 or 1/15 or something, again, the cost of running the new merge mine software will already be 100 millionth of whatever the real cost
these
is.
arguments are all for merge mining, no blind merge mining.
Exactly.
For the blind merge mining, there's no argument.
Blind merge mining solves it completely, but they don't understand blind merge mining. So, but the other thing I want to mention is the cost is actually negative, because they'll only run the merge mining software if the revenues from it exceed the costs. So it's just a bunch of weird mistakes, like Peter Todd dividing by cost, but he forgot to divide the revenues, or people just thinking, they forget that on layer 1, everything's mandatory, but on L2 with merge mining, you can just shut it off. It's a la carte. You can turn it on and off whenever you like. So then they have this weird argument that they think is sophisticated that goes, well, it's because it's profitable that it costs so much, because they say it's so profitable that people start doing it, then the network difficulty goes up, and now anyone who's not doing it is losing money. And again, that goes down the line of just being an argument against difficulty adjustments that we
That's
already
the communist line. That's the communist line. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it is. But I don't think these people are communists. I just think for one reason or another, they just don't believe. They just don't really think that this idea could be true because it's so good.
One nice argument that I've been hearing lately is that, do you have other use cases for the hash rate escrow? One use case is not enough. Making all possible side chains in the world is not enough. It's just one use case. You need at least one more.
Yeah, it's kind of like people. I published the idea and I say, listen, this idea solves everyone's problems. And I say, well, you have to do the code. And then they're like, okay, I do the code. Then it's you have to do the code, and then you have to code the sidechain also. Okay, and you have to copy. So it's you have to do an endless list of tasks. By the time there is some truth to this, though, because the more intelligent someone is, the more easier it is for them to foresee why it's a good idea. And so you're moving left on the bell curve as you pick up more people. The people who need it spelled out for them, by the time there will literally be people out there who will probably say something like, I won't believe that drivechain is a good idea until after everything is coded and it is activated on Bitcoin and lots of people have been using it for 5 or 6 years, and then they'll believe, then they'll decide that it was worth trying.
Activating. Yeah.
So plenty of people will say, I won't believe it's a good idea until after.
Going parabolic, right? That sort of guy.
There was this guy, Sam Walters, I think. He said, you have to first make the drive chain and see if people want that before you can activate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's what we're up against. No offense to them. I mean, I appreciate everyone's attention, that they gave attention to my project. My view is
Yeah.
that there's just a vague awareness that I put this in my pinned tweet, that there's a vague awareness that people like Peter Todd, maybe even Greg Maxwell, are against it on the minor centralization mistake, which is a mistake, which again, those guys are very, very smart, but smart doesn't mean infallible. And they are
Well, the
mistaken.
MEV thing was very surprising to me because I thought they had an argument. I thought
No,
that the
I think
argument
I think that was the case of a narcissist who's riding the coattails of people like Peter Todd and that another narcissist that by the name of Brian Trolls. I mean, these guys they're so intellectually just it's really pathetic reading their arguments.
The entire argument of Shinobi is that he just offends you and call you names.
Oh, he's got the name Troll in his fucking name, man. Like this guy is just a narcissist through and through. And well, anyway,
it's part of how.
But I thought they had something about MEV.
Pool. Yeah, I know. So I thought what I thought was it's yet another case of them mixing up L1 and L2. So I'll just go in and I'll straighten this out. I'll say, listen, there is MEV on the ETH sidechain, but it's over there. No one on L1 sees it. So that's what, of course, I thought it was. Little did we know he was just, there was just nothing happening.
I think, yeah. Well, I still don't know what was the argument and what's the current argument. They will never spell it out.
Oh, it's just a narcissist looking for attention. That's it. That's it.
And it's we set with the block size war. We set up the culture so that people can rise on the totem pole if they are like very toxic, basically.
Yes.
So this has trained people to just do this all the time. They just say, well, I will be the one who cares about Bitcoin safety the most. So they're like Bitcoin safety officer, Karen type people. And they just want to just say, I'm the one who cares about Bitcoin the most. And the fact that I am so unreasonable is just a manifestation of how it's really just like a virtue signaling kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. That's all it is. It's a virtue signaling, but it's false. It's false compassion. Yeah. It's false compassion for your security. Oh, please don't do that. Don't sell T-shirts.
A crucial aspect of it is that they are benefiting from it. They want to like start like some kind of they get more status. They get the invitations. They get stuff that they can like start a group or they can maybe start a company. So they get stuff out of it. So it's like they are a parasite, and my project is just collateral damage. It has nothing. They don't even know. They don't as obvious. They don't even know anything about the project. It's just an stage, a platform for them to. Yeah, it's like a venue for them to just.
Yes.
Hey, whatever. So
to what hate farm attention kind of style. That's the Jason Lowry method, right?
Yeah.
So okay, we got now. For example, the consequences of going with Peter Todd is that we no longer do the end-to-end principle. So any feature that comes into Bitcoin, well, we got now a new addressing scheme, we've got a new hashing scheme, and here I am. I'm trying to develop hardware wallets that go onto metal plates and whatnot, and I'm like, which fucking address do I support? Yeah. What do you have? So I don't really have a point about that, but also,
well, I mean, the fact that there's so many, the address formats is, I think, a kind of a canary in the coal mine on the development. I think, honestly, it's this, and the descriptor wallets are like
batch 32M.
Batch 32M. Like, why would they do that? Why would they name it like that with an M? Why would they do that? Well, couldn't they just say?
I don't know.
I think couldn't they just say like? Couldn't they just say the version numbers before? Well, have we complained about this before, where it's like they're unreadable. Also, it's like they all start with the same like 5 characters. The version number is like the Q or something. Like it's like designed by Satan or something. I don't, you can't read them. Whereas before we had starts with a 1, starts with a 3. It was perfect.
That's true.
Starts with a 5 is wallet import format.
Yeah.
For the private key.
Oh, I kind of like the batch 32, but when they did the batch 32 second birth, I don't understand why they did that. Like they made a mistake and
they made a mistake.
They corrected the mistake, and so now we have to live with the mistake. and
We have to
then
live with the old
also
mistake, even though addresses are not in the blockchain. It's just the hash 160 or whatever is in there is not. So I don't. Bets32M. Yeah, I need like when you're trying to research that type of thing, like I don't even know how I even found it. I was just luckily found it on Reddit that you have to type in Bets32M to get the new thing that will work. Because I was trying to make a descriptor wallet. And again, descriptor wallets are like people think like
you should have recorded that while doing a descriptor wallet. That
I
would be the
know.
best video to YouTube.
The swear words, the
It
constant
just
string of
adds
swear words.
the more we have an enormous disparity between like what people will say on Twitter and what they actually do, which is none of these people, people who say they like descriptor wallets, they have never made a descriptor wallet. So, and then people did this with Lightning for many years. None of those people were like Lightning. None of them had ever run Lightning. No one knew. People would say, remember, we had many people who we had lots of people who were pro Lightning. You guys probably know the names. And then like on Twitter, like they'll be on a video and they're like, oh, why do I need to run like a Lightning node? Or they didn't know that you need to run a layer 1 full node in order to run Lightning node in the first place. And like people would retweet. I remember people would do videos about their experience with Lightning. People would be like retweeting them. And then someone would point out, this person says that they had a really hard time with Lightning and they lost all their money. And then they're like, oh, I just retweeted it to be supportive of Lightning. And you're just like, people don't. So no one, everyone is a phony. Everyone is a bullshitter, basically. 99% of the tweets are from people who just they it's not even false. They have no idea. Yeah. It's just a performance. Yeah. They just think thing good, whatever.
Yeah.
So
Jeff, you implemented a transactional layer, I believe. This crossed my mind, and it doesn't have. It's basically it's trust based, and I thought that was a very interesting idea, very interesting concept. Could you expand a little bit about that? I'm interested to hear about that.
Oh, that was like the hosted chains thing. It was supposed to be like interface with Lightning seamlessly, but you could just run a wallet and it would be much better than a normal custodial wallet, because a normal custodial wallet has all your transactional details. And this one, you could have one wallet and you could have multiple custodial accounts with multiple providers, and they wouldn't know very much about you and would be interoperable, etc. And I think the Lightning is very broken. So this was one of the ideas to fix it. You would just do trust based, but you wouldn't put a lot of money in there, and you would just divide your trust between multiple people. And yeah, mostly Lightning today is also very trust based. So you need your channel peers to not fuck with you and not try to turn your life into hell for it to work. So it's not a big deal to trust them with a little bit of money. Yeah, but I did that. But to just idea. Like you needed a bridge, like you need a server that would have normal Lightning channels and also open the spot for this. Yeah.
See, the thing with Lightning is there is no way we could possibly understate the amount of just psychological corruption that has happened to people because of the block size war. So it's not even anything against the light. Again, I believe in pluralism and I think we should try all these things. But what happened was there was a scaling war. People said, we want large blocks. Other people said, that's a bad idea. And then the large block people said, well, what are we going to do instead? And the small block people, myself included, we were like, well, here's this idea. This is Lightning Network. This is much better because now instead of global state, which is like the UTXO set or whatever, which is like clearly not going to work very well, we have this thing where you prep it and then you have this whole second network. And then there you are responsible for your own little payments and no blockchain. So isn't that great? And that's how it started. And then what happened was the large blockers started to critique the Lightning Network, and many of their critiques were wrong or just nonsensical. So they were saying this and that. They clearly didn't know of it. It was the same BS that is happening now with drivechain, basically, where there was a time when you could watch the original SF BitDevs Lightning presentation, and I would check in month after month. I would check back at it, because what I noticed, I watched it the first time. I said, oh, this only has like 300 views. I'm like the 300th person to learn about the Lightning Network, the future of Bitcoin, the greatest technology like ever invented in the history of mankind up to this point. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. I'm like number 300. And then I would come back because I was like, this is a very difficult thing to understand. So I was like, oh, I have to watch it again. And it was like 314. I was like, oh.
You can count me in that. You can count me in. I was number 14.
And then I started to turn it into a little project where I was like, why aren't the critics watching this video? Like, why doesn't people who hate on Lightning, Roger Ver, whatever, whoever it is, whatever, take your pick, long list of people who could have. I was like, these people, are they watching it, or did they maybe they downloaded it somewhere and they played it to an auditorium full of people? I'm like trying to figure out, and month after month, year after year would go by, and it took like 2 years for this thing to get to 400 views or something. This was like the only resource other than the white paper, which, no offense to the people who wrote the Lightning white paper, I'm sure they did it. They poured their heart and soul into it, I bet. I found it to be, those butterfly diagrams, I thought it would have been better if they just weren't in there. I couldn't make any sense of it. All the naming was horrendous. The presentation was good though. But only 400 people on the planet Earth. And this is, I don't know exactly how YouTube is counting when I watch it like 5 or 6 times. Like, each of those counts? I guess my guess is that they must. Because otherwise, how could that Gangnam Style video get to like 1 billion, right? So like, I was like, what the heck is going on here? And the answer is that no one knew anything about the Lightning Network, the people for or against.
Yeah.
No one knew.
Yeah, still today they don't. I've been listening to all the Lightning podcasts, and I think they're starting to get it now. But the supposedly very technical people, they didn't have any. Even the Bitcoin Core wizards, they were not paying very much attention to the Lightning protocol and what was supposed to do, and so they didn't know the details. And there's also this split, like the Tej Draja. He said at some point that the other guy, Joseph Poon, was saying that Lightning would scale everything, would fix the entire world, etc. And he was more like, no, this can facilitate some transactions like between exchanges and etc. But it won't scale Bitcoin to the entire world.
Yeah.
But that was the thesis that won the minds of people, and everybody thought that. And still to this day, like Tej Draja will say that the sub fee HTLCs that do not exist, you can send an HTLC on the Lightning Network, and they actually do not exist as HTLCs. It's just a fake imagined construct.
He's 100% right about that.
He says that should not happen, and like apparently
it's actually worse. But the crazy thing is, it seems to me that Peter Todd is not aware of that, because that happened also a few days ago. Because
he posted a screenshot with a bunch of 1 Satoshi transactions, like, oh, it's working.
Yeah, like how can he not understand? So we can explain this to the audience, maybe, which is that the reason why there's no HTLC below the fee dust limit, is that the HTLC costs a certain amount of bytes to just write into the transaction, and it expands the size of the transaction such that at whatever fee rate you were paying before. See, because it's not, fees in Bitcoin are per byte. It's how much ink you use. So let's say you have this is how, for example, people like Roger Ver, when they had to combine like 5,000 inputs or something, they could pay hundreds or thousands of dollars in transaction fees. I'll try to explain this here, which is that, let's say you planned on spending 50 cents for a 220 byte transaction. And at that rate, 50 cents per 220 bytes. The HTLC, for you to route this payment, the payment, if you were to broadcast this on chain, let alone for what it would take for you to later redeem it by selecting it as an input and providing the script. I'm not sure if this is going to do a good job of explaining it, but I'm going to try, and maybe Stewart, you can tell me if anyone in the audience is going to get this or whatever. The amount of ink needed to write down the HTLC will cost more than the whole thing is worth. Because the thing is worth 5 cents. Then now to broadcast it on L1 is going to cost you 25 more cents. The whole point of having the HTLC is so you can claim that 5 cents if someone screws you. But there's no reason to ever do that when it would cost 25 cents in ink to write it down, and then another 50 cents in ink to later redeem it. It would cost you more. It's like it's like going to court and someone hits your bike or dings your car, and you need to sue them for $50. But the court, taking them to court, there's a fee to get into the court that is $800. Well, you can't tell the person, well, I'm going to take you to court. They know you won't, because
I think you hit it on the head, man. I think you hit it on the head. Fiatjaf, do you have input to that before I go?
Yeah. A friend of mine once won a lottery ticket, and he won it with a lot of other people in the entire country. So when he got he went to the place to get his prize, and the prize was barely just enough to pay the bus that he spent to go there. So
that's too bad. I mean, but Fiat, how do you explain what Peter Todd did there? How do you explain that? Him showing me that screenshot, and then I said, because I
think he understands it.
I explicitly said the HTLCs do not work, because you can still have some version of the Lightning Network that just works if you just say, listen, that's such a small amount of money, I'll just forward it to you, and then you forward it to the next person, and it's
much worse than that. It's much worse because they care. Like, the software treats it as if the HTLC existed. So if the payment gets stuck, for example, and you have to close the channel and go on chain and claim the HTLC back whenever the time lock expires. So the node software will do that. It will close the channel, waste a bunch of fees, and then it will try to claim that HTLC, but at that point it will realize the HTLC doesn't exist. So it's much more dumb, like, if they just agreed to say. But if you did agree, like, there's discussion about this sometimes. Whenever the Lightning people, they are not sleeping, they sometimes talk about this, and they say, oh, but if we don't close the channel, then that means the person can steal money from us, and we won't do anything. So there's really no solution. I wrote an article trying to explain the problem, and there's no solution for this. You close the channel, but you just lose the channel. And then the person can open another channel against you, with you, and then the person can try to screw you up again. But they also don't gain anything from that, so no one is trying to do that on purpose. But it happens a lot because of bugs and other tricks.
Yeah.
Anyway, Peter Todd said.
How do you explain what Peter Todd is doing? Because I said HTLCs don't work for when it's below the L1 fee rate, and then he posted that screenshot, and I said those aren't HTLCs, which they clearly aren't. And if they were, then it was an example where Peter Todd's node was actually prepared to go to court, spend $800 to win like a $20 case. So that would actually be even worse if they were HTLCs. It would be even worse.
The protocol says that the nodes have to agree exactly on what's the transaction they're pre-signing. So you can't choose, like, the nodes do what they must do always. So whenever an HTLC is very cheap. Yeah, the node doesn't create the HTLCs, actually.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, why is Peter Todd saying that those are using HTLCs? Like, is it really possible that he does not know?
If he said that, then he doesn't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, but that's kind of surprising
to me. That, it's not worth for the other node to try to cheat, so he won't. But the fact is that they are not HTLCs.
But
And
that's completely
the worst
different. They're
thing is
not like
that
Lightning. Lightning is very carefully defined as these duplex channels that we have HTLCs to stream. That is what the Lightning Network is.
well, they're called
Not something else.
HTLCs in the protocol. Even though they're called trimmed HTLCs, like HTLCs that you just don't make. But they're called HTLCs. They have a payment hash associated with them, and like these payment hashes, they're supposed to identify HTLCs, and you get a pre-image for that to prove that you paid, and you can use the pre-image to redeem the HTLC on the chain. And you have all of that, but you don't actually have the HTLC. It's a very ugly thing.
So you get a pre-image for the hash doesn't exist anywhere on the blockchain. Like when you broadcast
No,
this
no, on the blockchain it doesn't exist. It
right,
just
because
exists
why
as
would
an
you
agreement
why would
between
you
the
get
nodes.
it? It doesn't make any sense at all. But so I guess maybe he's saying the trimmed HTLC is a real HTLC, even though it doesn't exist, even though that doesn't make sense. I mean, because the HTLC, what it stands for is hash time locked contract. So the hash is the whole point.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
H. There's no H anywhere.
There's also no time lock.
Yes, there's no time lock.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they just want to treat a payment with a trimmed HTLC as if
Yeah,
it
but
had
the
an
trimmed
actual
HTLC again, it's like custodial lightning or something. It's like, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you like the play? It's like there's no like all the meaning is destroyed from these. It's like when they had the hosted blockchain
and the payment
like
goes to
Microsoft
miners. Like the amounts go to miners. So
Oh yeah. No, but I think that's another intriguing.
Doesn't that
that's a
affect
separate
mining
thing.
incentives?
Yeah, I know, that's what I was going to say. This is a completely separate matter, but what it technically means is that if the L1 fee rate is high, then you should only open, it's only incentive compatible if you open the channel like with the miners are the ones who should be opening the channels. And then the miners control all the channels, and then it actually becomes a BIP 300 hash rate escrow. The Lightning Network does. That's the exact same logic that Peter Todd's weird equilibrium of mining costs, where it's like 10 cents worth of advantage becomes this insurmountable, unstoppable force that we have no recourse over. It's like, oh, okay, well now miners should be the only ones who open the channels. Everyone else should have a custodial lightning with the miners. And then it's like, oh no, that's just BIP 300, except much worse, because you have no ability to like stand as a group against detect the mistake.
So I'm gonna use the two of you as a soundboard for this just opinion that I have. One of the solutions that I want to create for this transactional layer is to say, well, okay, don't use this sort of like relay type system. How do I explain this? The way Lightning does it is it uses this, it's supposed to use this hash time lock contract between these different nodes and sort of find a route through the network. And if it fails, then the hash time lock contract sort of like, fall back. You can either, after a certain time, you can grab the contents of this little locker, or else it just gets forwarded. Now, and to your point, Paul, I agree with you. You've got like an $800 fee to go to the court to settle for like a $20 thing, right? My thoughts are, as a drive chain side chain, the correct way to do this is you actually do have the underlying network, which is this sort of flood first forwarding type network, or specifically information centric networking type network that can forward. So if I just say I want to pay this amount of value from me to you, Fiatjaf, or you, Paul, what will happen is the network will see this and see the endpoints, the two public keys, and say, okay, just forward this information, and then it'll be the network's responsibility to get it from me to your public key. And then once that happens, then we can directly, no intermediaries, come to an agreement. Would this be is this would you say that this is a better way of handling something like a Lightning?
But how do you transfer?
How do you transfer
to me? What you're not transferring?
The network
Bitcoins.
is intelligent enough to find you.
Yeah, but how does the money go from you?
This is not a great thing about the Lightning Network, is that you need to, like, some people run it behind Tor, which is great. I mean, I don't know, like if people, but it's also like very keyed on finding your IP address and interacting with you, which I think is actually one of yet more of its why it will probably not be that popular. I don't really understand. It's like your idea is we have these people and we know the path that connects A to B.
My point is that the underlying network can be over any transport. It doesn't have to be over IP. It could be over radio frequency.
Okay.
It could be over any transport. The network treats it as an opaque data chunk. It doesn't give it. It could be a cat image. It could be a value. It could be, I don't know. The point is that it could be something, and in this form, it could be, I don't know, maybe a Bitcoin transaction. But the point is, it's just a black box that goes from me to you, and well, whatever you're going to put into that, it could be a hash time lock contract between the two of us, and not a chain, for example.
That doesn't work.
That doesn't
work.
Did you say it doesn't work?
I mean, the what happens with Lightning is everyone already has these multi-signature outputs that are 2 of 2 that have a certain amount of coins in them.
Yes.
And that they're so split. So like if there's 22 coins in one of these, it could be split like 4/18.
Yeah.
But there's actually something on L1 that says whatever 22 coins, this output. That's like the funding of Lightning. So that's why you can move stuff through those HTLC related stuff because that already exists. And with your thing, you didn't really explain like what is happening on L1 to move how do the coins, who has what coins, and how are they going to later?
So okay. I mean, so my main issue here is that my main point that I'm trying to make is that getting the data from person A to person B is just the problem I'm solving. Mm-hmm. The actual value transfer, that's something that well, first of all, it's far away enough that I haven't thought about that clearly enough.
Okay.
But the point is that the point is that is me connecting directly from me to you, and instead of having to go through like a first-class routing network specifically designed for routing these payments. No, don't do that. Just use the underlying network, which would communicate this value transfer.
The reason the Lightning has this other network is because you have to move the money through that, and the channels have to exist before. Like they have to exist beforehand. Doesn't matter if I can contact you directly if you're like inside you.
But that's what causes the $800 bill. You see, and if I just have, am I correct? But if I just have like if there's just a single hash time lock contract between us, then
you have to publish what keeps the chain.
What? Oh, that's what you mean by the $800 bill.
Yeah, the idea with the HTLC is you have a stuff that's already open.
Yes.
And then the HTLC is lets the payment go through a third party. It's like if you don't see, because otherwise it's very there's plenty of people in life that you'll pay more than one time, or they'll pay you, like your boss or like your favorite takeout place or whatever. Yes. So you have a channel open with them, and then it's like a bar tab, but cryptographically enforced. Now, but you see, the real world just has too many instances where you have to pay someone that you'll never pay again.
Yes.
For that to work. So the question is, what do we do about that? And the Lightning answer is the HTLC. It lets you make it so that I can pay you can pay the next person, it all in the chain, and they either all happen or they don't happen. So the HTLC is a kind of like a synchronicity event. It is like I don't know, something in a movie where everyone is the same. Insert movie reference here. What I was thinking of something.
Okay, all right.
John Malkovich.
Yes.
That John Malkovich movie.
There is actually one thing, which is in Indiana Jones, he gets the idol. He steals the idol at the very beginning. The first
latest
Indiana Jones movie. He has the gold thing.
Yes.
And he's with that guy.
He's got to swap it, right?
Are
you talking about the latest movie? Because I have not seen it.
I haven't seen the latest. No, I'm talking about the first.
Oh, you're talking about the one where he swaps
it.
Yes.
And he has the thing, and he has to jump across the chasm. And the guy says, "Throw me the rope." Indy is in trouble. He says, "Throw me the rope," and the guy says, "Throw me the idol." And Indy looks at the idol or whatever, and he looks at the rope and he says, "You first." And the guy looks over and the door is closing and like the spike trap is coming down or whatever. And the guy says, "No time to argue." So Indy throws him the idol, and then he doesn't throw him the rope. And then Indy has to use the whip to get across. And then right in the next room, this is the magic of Steven Spielberg or whatever. Right in the next room, he's been impaled on the spike trap, holding the idol. So he says something like "Adios, senor," and then Indy sees him and he's like dead, and he's like, he grabs the idol back and he's like, "Adios, senor," or whatever. He says the same thing, and then he escapes. So the HTLC is like the rope and the idol going at the same time. You cannot take the idol without leaving the rope. That's what the HTLC does.
Yes.
It only works if you already have the channels open.
Yeah. So setting up and tearing down those channels is the expensive thing.
Just the onboarding problem is very big for Lightning. And one crazy thing that doesn't make any sense to me at all is that I appear to be the only person who is willing to talk about it at all. I don't know why or how.
There's not enough room to onboard the whole world.
I just said in April of last year or whatever, I was like, well, it was February of last year, or maybe, I don't know, maybe the time I'm getting older and I'm losing all my marbles and I don't know what year it is, but I think it was February of last year. I was on the mailing list just talking about everything, this and that. And then they were like, yeah, Lightning is better for onboarding than sidechains. And I was like, oh, really? And then I was like, that doesn't sound right. And so I did the envelope, and I was like, this envelope math is terrible. Like, it would take like 122 years to onboard everyone to the Lightning network. And then they were like, well, channel factories. And then I was like, what? And I was like, a channel factory doesn't work because if anyone in the channel factory doesn't participate, you have to drag the whole thing back on chain. And the channel factory is like 20 times the size of normal Bitcoin transaction to do unwind, and creating it is also like, it requires coordination, and so it doesn't fix it at all.
There's a video from Roger Ver where he makes the math, and he arrives.
I kind of vaguely remember he has like an Excel spreadsheet or something.
I don't know.
Vaguely remember that.
Yeah, but at the time I was like beginning to learn about Lightning and doing stuff. And
yes, this is absolutely crucial to point out, which is that Roger will certainly get the last laugh on that one, but there were a lot of critique. I don't think that necessarily, like, there were a lot of critiques of Lightning at the time, and I don't believe that most of the people really understood the Lightning Network when they made the critiques, just like I think the people who are pro Lightning were also bullshitting. I think the whole thing was just a bunch of BS, really, and people were just like making stuff up, and no one really knew what they were talking about. But he's certainly going to get the last laugh on as far as Lightning onboarding, which I think is very perplexing. Certainly, whatever you have to do to fix that, it will be so different from the Lightning network proposed by Kaz Draja and Joseph Poon as to be effectively like a differently named thing. So there you go. But yeah, I thought that was
the hubs thing. One of the critics was the hub thing. Oh, Lightning will centralize in a few hubs.
Right.
And I remember the Lightning defenders, they were those say no, this
that would never happen, right? Exactly. And I also thought it wouldn't happen. I thought, well, why would they? I mean, hubs are great, but it doesn't matter if they're hubs. And no, I think I was wrong about that. And now we see, for example, the Barack, creator of Arc, a brilliant guy, but he's like, he comes out of the gate, like he starts to do his Arc explanation. I've seen it a few times. There's actually a funny video at Bitcoin Plus in Austin of me, everyone in the audience just being confused, including me being completely confused, and me just trying.
It's impossible to understand his explanation. It's
pull the idea out of his head.
Well, so
It's not this,
it's not that. It's more like
what
that.
he says, like right out of the gate, he's like, so obviously Lightning doesn't work or whatever. Lightning is terrible, and then he's like, it only works if we have these big hubs that do everything, and so we need to make these hubs. We have to make sure that these hubs work. You can always easily join and leave the hub. So it's all about hubs, and everyone is only going to have a connection to one Lightning node. Like they're not going to like have all these things. They'll be like a hub one and then like backup hub, and we need to be able to let them open the hub and start spending before the. So it's like, so he is just like right out of the gate, like pro hub.
Yeah, but it's not just him. Like all the other Lightning overlords, they're doing the same. Like they have this LSP thing that like one
LSP.
company running a Lightning server for all his
That is a
wallet
bad one too
users.
for the. That's very bad for the. Well, I hate to interrupt, but it's like that was another thing that they said. The large blocker said is that these people just become banks. And at the time, I was like, what are they even talking about? Like banks? Like it's like a cryptographic thing. Who even cares if they call themselves banks? Doesn't matter. But now they have become banks like for real. Like they actually own everyone's Bitcoin, and these people don't even own a channel. And
No,
yeah,
there are two modes. Like there's the custodial wallets
yeah,
that are much bigger than everything else, and there are these LSPs. They actually don't the money. Like they just open the channel. Like you install a wallet, like Phoenix Wallet or whatever, and the wallet automatically opens a channel to one specific central hub, and you live with that. And that's being enshrined in the protocol. Like new additions to the Lightning protocol already assume these hubs exist. Like you need these to do a bunch of niceties for the protocol. So they accepted the hub model, but the custodial stuff is much more. It exists in much more.
So Paul's buggered off for a second. I'm sure he'll be back. Yeah, Fiatjaf. You got interrupted a little bit earlier on when you're describing your what's it, the trusting transactional layer. I don't know what you call that.
Well, I like this idea of the hosted channels, which was actually
and the main reason
first
why you
by-
wanted to do that was what problem are you solving?
to strike this balance
Well, I
between
want to
user
solve-
friendliness and like, well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wait,
just wanted
wait,
to
Paul.
think to
I want to do one follow-up question with Fiatjaf regarding the work that he did on the trusted transactional layer. And I want to know what problem he's solving.
Well, the problem I solve is I want cheap transactions that work. You don't have to store a bunch of things, run a bunch of things, and just want to do. And it's better than using a custodial wallet, which is the preferred solution for the very, very vast majority of Lightning users today.
So how did you get to the main chain? Did you also have some? Yeah.
No, in this case, you would interface with some provider, like some server that has actual Lightning channels, and you would trust that one. You trust that server, but that server would forward your payments to the rest of the network.
I see. Okay, so you're gonna have some sort of
I think Lightning is like this very convoluted, cumbersome, complex, super failable, like super
flaky,
super flaky, whatever. It's very bad, and just so people can tip some 25 satoshis to others, like you don't need that. You don't need all that though. It's so whatever. So if you just made a network made of trust for small amounts, it would be much easier to do. It would be simpler. It would be everything would be much easier, and you could make it so it was actually decentralized, and instead of having a bunch of like, because today everybody's trying to optimize for this super adversarial network, whatever. But what happens in the end is 99% of the users are all having using a custodial provider, like one of the 5 custodial providers that exist. And if you could, like, instead of make a actually decentralized network of trust and you trust your friends, I think it would be much better outcome. And you wouldn't use any of that to store your life savings. You would use it just to buy a coffee and to tip people, send tips, because apparently that's the thing that people love more. Yeah.
Well, it's America. They do a lot of tipping, right?
Yes, failing to tip is you go straight to hell.
No. Social ostracization for you.
Yeah, it is funny. It's one of those things where the easier the crime is to get away with, the more proportionate the deterrent. Which in this case would be like everyone would turn on you. There's not a single person who would defend you.
Oh, you get out of here as you walk out the diner. That's what you guys call it.
I think it's kind of interesting, like that. It's like on one hand, people are worried about it's really difficult to run a full node, so we have to keep the block size small. But then it's like we'll use Lightning, but then now it's very difficult to run the Lightning. So it's kind of like it ended up not. And it's just kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a funny situation. But this is why we should be more pluralist. We should try more things. We should let everyone try their weird thing. And that's a good thing. That's what we want. We want lots of stuff to be tried. And but that's not the attitude that we currently have right now.
Well, that's like free speech, right? You're using speech, you're using code to actually explore different options, and then you say, well, I found something and it actually works. And then people learn from that and evolve it and grow it. And the idea
one
matures.
thing that you could also think about is like Satoshi didn't have to justify anything to anyone. He just did his thing and released it. And it was totally misunderstood for years by even the people who now are its like biggest supporters.
Yeah.
But now in Bitcoin development, it's kind of like you have to appease the dumbest people, laziest and dumbest. You have to get full consensus from 100% of the dumbest community.
Yes.
The dumbest person in the community must sign off.
And then you get the trolls, and then you get the
PTV.
trolls. You throw the trolls into there, and then who now cause more problems for you? It's just not scalable. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. So that can kind of sort of lead us into maybe the next section. Last night I went to a meeting with Mike Young. He's a friend of yours, I believe.
Yes.
You know, we saw this meeting post. It's a layer 2 Asia. And the first thing I did, I saw this and I thought, it's a scam. so
well,
I
don't really necessarily know like what I can't really understand what, you know, I can't read Chinese, so that's always a little bit of an arm's length.
No, I mean, well, that's why I forwarded it to you and I said, Paul, what's going on here? I mean, like, and well, I went with my mate last night and it was a really good talk. Mike does a really great job of communicating the drive chain thing. You know, he does it in bilingual. He does it in English and Chinese and nearly all of it
Cantonese as well.
Does he speak Cantonese?
Yeah.
Well, he was born in Hong Kong, so but spent a lot of his life in Canada, if I recall correctly. But yeah, he seems like a pretty cool dude. I'm gonna take him out for beers. It'll be great.
Oh, great.
To get to know him.
He is a good guy. Yes.
Yeah. He's pretty neat. But some of the discussion points were actually quite interesting, and maybe you want to sort of open up some of the stuff. It might be something you'd fight in a little bit controversial, or maybe not controversial, and let you take the lead on that.
Well, I think, you know, I'm committed to bringing this idea into the world, and I think that we're going to try a lot of things to demonstrate the effectiveness of the idea. And I think a lot of people have really underestimated like the idea. And so we're going to try to I think the number one priority is to do what's best for the end Bitcoin user and not necessarily what is best for, you know, Bitcoin Twitter or elite Bitcoin developers or just people who have opinions.
The dumb people.
So we have, I think like that's the important thing to keep in mind. And I think that we will be, working on a lot of great stuff at the company, and we're going to put out a lot of great software for people to use. And I think people are going to really enjoy it.
That was a non-answer, Paul. Okay, all right. So I get as far as you want to push that, and that's fine. All right. Okay, so I thought we were going to get an hour conversation out of that, but so now I have to think of the next question. Okay, Paul.
I have a question.
Good. Thank you.
The question is, why can't we have like a very bad but still working version of a prediction market scheme on a federation or custodial?
I think we should. No, I've always been in favor of this. No, I'm very excited about this. I like to work on my own weird thing, which is hive mind or whatever, which is kind of like a lightning network thing where it's very convoluted and it's designed to work under the most adversarial of cases. But I don't think, again, like, as I believe in pluralism, so I think people should try all kinds of stuff.
But whenever people ask you, or maybe whenever I asked you, just say, "Oh, this will not work."
Well, I don't think it will work, but I think people should try. You said, why can't we have? I said, well, we could try it. If someone should do it, I would be in favor of someone doing it. But I think it's difficult. Running a prediction market is basically the same thing as running a big exchange where you control. It's kind of like the oracles are kind of like custodians. They control the fate of all the money. And because what they can do is they can say something that the prediction market, it should trade at 100%, but they can switch it so that it trades at 0%, and the thing that didn't happen trades at 100% when it should be 0. So they can buy for 0 the thing and then flip the oracle and extract all the money from the prediction market. So the prediction market oracle is contents under pressure. A single point of failure is extreme stress point for the oracle. That is a key, like, weakness. So, like, if you're just going to say we have a federation do it, whatever, then it's going to be difficult if there's someone won't even want to bet on it at first because they'll think, what if tons of other people bet, and now this becomes, the Gangnam style of contract. Now there's tons of money here. Now they're going to rug pull and kill. So you need it to kind of stay like at just the right size. You need a lot of stuff to happen. It's bad if it becomes too popular. It's bad if it's not popular enough because you think this whole scheme isn't viable. So now they're going to exit scam and rug pull. You need to know a lot about who are these people. You need to know about, for example, their time preference, so to speak. So if these people are going to get involved with you, they open a prediction market system and they say, we are going to be collecting fees. So your money is safe with us now. Excuse me. Gotta do a little Marco Rubio there. They say this thing is, you can bet like $1,000 or $10,000 here up front, and we're going to be collecting all these transaction fees. So that we'll be totally honest. But then what if those people, like it's like a 3 of 5 multisig, and you find that the 3 of those 5 people they have terminal brain cancer or something. These are the kind of things that you actually need to know, like their time preference may have switched, or they're going to retire or something. So you kind of need to know a lot about the same weaknesses of the Federation has always had. You need to know about the Federation and what's their deal. Like, who are these people? Are they trustworthy? So these are the many disadvantages that Bitcoin Hive Mind Truthcoin does not have. It doesn't have any of those disadvantages. Instead, it has a lot of convoluted blah, blah, blah. But we're currently rewriting it in Rust. Everyone out there loves Rust.
Jesus Christ.
Happy to know.
That will make it succeed. Just in that in itself.
Rust, dick, everyone,
rewrite the world in Rust. You're good.
There you go, world. I hope you're happy with that big announcement. So that's why, I don't know if that's like me giving you a big rambly answer, but I'm telling you, like, I would hope someone would do that. That may be all we need. I don't think so, though, because what we really need is the prediction markets. There's certain questions that are just so good that everyone will hate them. And these are questions like, would the stock price go up if we fired the CEO? Would the GDP go up if we fired the political party that's currently? And those need to be, these really will become, it needs to be like an armored vehicle where it's built like a Ford F-150. It needs to be like really tough. You don't. This is not a case where you can just be like, oh, blah blah blah. Well, a bunch of friends will trust.
But these things only work also if there's a lot of money on them, right? Like people that really know the things, they won't just bet 10 satoshis. Doesn't make sense. Like, it's right. They have to be safe. Because the thing will be.
Well, maybe I misunderstood you there, but in prediction market world, there's like usually like 2 or 3 people who know the actual answer, and we need to make sure they get the answer out. They can make a ton of money.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense for a person that knows
of money, and we want them to make it privately and like tax free, because that whatever you may feel about whatever different countries and their tax laws, it just happens to be a cold hard fact of the universe that every tax is a friction, and of course being stigmatized as the winner is a friction. So we want to make sure that everyone who contributes to the prediction market, they contribute their hard-won knowledge, we need to make sure they rise the totem pole in the form of anonymous, untraceable e-cash by winning big. And they need to know when they make the bet that they will win, which is the whole reason why. So the Oracle system needs to be very robust.
So this is the connection with the Zcash sidechain, because then they can just come back down to main chain and
partially because they can switch it out, and what they can do is they could make money on one chain, switch it for Zcash, and then the coins would partially sidechains actually do this kind of already, because sidechains you can swap once you do cross chain. You could do HTLCs, which would link them. But you can also, more likely, you would just do something like Coinbase or Sideshift, where you would just slowly stream them across and swap them with no HTLC, with just the reputation of the exchange and the exchanges, which does work, because that is a situation where they stand to make an ongoing enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
And so they would do that, and you send it to them, they send it to you. It's like the coins you get on L1 are now completely different coins than what you won in the prediction market sidechain. So privacy is very important.
Why
all important things, it has enemies. Everyone has the worst kind of people as its enemies. Every important thing.
Why are prediction markets not done in the fiat world? Like, apparently the governments always ban all the prediction markets. Why? And they never give an explanation, and people are not aware of why they have this they specifically target.
It's one of the most important questions in the world. I have researched it myself in enormous detail, but I do not have a real answer for you that I could actually bet my life on. Yeah, but I have some answers for you. Okay, so one is it's not banned everywhere. In the UK, it's encouraged, but is the UK just a fluke? I don't know, but in the UK,
is it encouraged? Like, it's just sports.
There's an idea that a gentleman, they get into a dispute and they do a wager on it. That's seen as a classy thing, correctly so. It's seen as a civilized thing to do. In America is hung up on its Puritanism. America has various different cultural strands. Some of them are these boorish strands that are like the South and stuff, but the main one that where all of our laws and universities and stuff comes from is this Boston, Harvard, Boston, New Haven, whatever kind of like
Ivy League type thing.
Belt. And this culture is obsessed with Puritanism, and Puritanism is all about like self-denial. Gambling is seen as just wrong. Gambling is just a useless thing. It's a vice. It is pointless. So it doesn't. But yeah, there's some other reasons. I have a whole list of. This is how you know that I don't have the real answer, because I'm just going to shotgun all the reasons that I've ever found.
Yeah, but the governments, they always allow betting on sports. They never allow betting on.
Betting on sports was forbidden in the United States until very recently. FanDuel and DraftKings, which is great for me, they did like a Sprint Uber style attack, where they rolled the dice. They were like, this is technically illegal, but they just started in certain states and they just grew really big and they became popular. They started advertising, and then they tried to crack down on it, and then they just said, write to your congressperson and say, we're going to have to close down DraftKings or whatever it is. And then they started to flip them into making it legal. So then sometimes there's very curious things about, like, I don't remember the exact rules, but Connecticut has something really silly, like it's illegal if it's too small, if there's like less than one team or more than 6 teams. But it's like there's weird carve-outs, like, so it's all nonsense really. But so it's not the case that it is but there's other reasons why a bet doesn't really, it's not treated the way it should be treated. So like we could go back in time and say like the origin of the first democracy or something, or the first printing press, and people would say, well, how could we get knowledge from books? We should just get it from the church or whatever, the king, or from God. or from my own two eyes. Why do we need books? Like, so it's not seen the way we would see it. The way that you and I maybe, and the three of us see it, perhaps, is that the bet is crucial because it means that you are not a bullshitter, and it also scales enormously. It can be broadcast to the whole world that this person is betting on this. And unlike a conversation where you have lots of people who have to talk to each other, the bet just stands by itself. In fact, the prediction market gets more liquid the more people who look at it. So it has the property that it scales very well. Actually has good economies of scale, whereas something like a conversation does not, which is why we have to have something like a Joe Rogan podcast. We have to have like a logarithmic tree of people. And so the bet is not seen that way now. When people see a bet in the United States, they think of stuff like betting is dominance because the wealthier person can afford to lose the bet, whereas the poor person is shoved out. They think like provinciality. They think betting is something you're supposed to do on irrelevant things like horse gambling. So why would someone want to bet on something like whether or not the CEO, the stock price would go up if we fired the CEO? So there's a whole Robin Hanson wrote a whole thing. Well, we'll read it from the great. I'm going to try to find this.
The great man himself.
So good. Why not?
Yeah, but there's a problem with betting.
The greatest. But I have a huge list. Like one reason is a lot of people don't want the info to get out. So some people actually know that. They know that so for example, if the CEO knows that he's lazy, someone comes in and says, listen, I got this great idea for this project. It's going to improve the efficiency of the corporation. And the CEO says, wow, great. He says, yeah, it's really easy to do. It's just like this one little equation. You just let these people trade anonymously. They can win money. And they say, okay, great. What's the idea? And the idea is, well, we had to let people bet on whether or not the CEO should be fired. Now, whose permission do you have to get if you want to try this at Google or something? You know, it's going to go through him. So all the bad CEOs exit. Now, it's another thing where it's like double entry bookkeeping. In a world where everyone does prediction markets, you would look very shady if you didn't do it. But if you're the first person to do it, then you look something like, it looks like you. What if you're
the shady one?
Yeah, exactly. No one. It looks like you are very suspicious. You say no one does double entry bookkeeping, but someone says, "Listen, we're going to keep our books the exact same way as everyone else, and we're going to hire independent auditors to come in to make sure." The first thought everyone is thinking is like, "Why doesn't this guy trust our accounting department? Like, surely our friend Jeff, the accountant, he would never lie to us." So that people would be like, why are they doing that? Anyway, okay. Oh, this is another good one. This is one from Robin Hanson that I forgot from his list. Okay.
Read it.
It's a sincerity. I'm going to read it to you. It's great. In many subcultures, it looks bad to care a lot about most any topic of casual conversation. Because most people they're just making small talk. So such passion suggests that you just don't get the usual social functions of such conversations. So people are just conversing and they just have fun. We're just having fun. We're just because we want to hang out. It's something to do on a Thursday night. Just hang out with your friends. Most people aren't supposed to actually care about whether or not an idea is true, because then we would all have to care about whether or not our ideas were true, and then it would be like, that would be terrible. So conflict. Here's a great one. This is why people bullshitted with lightning before. It's coming full circle. When we speak, it's seen as signaling our allegiance to something. So if you're supposed to be like, you're not supposed to make too much of a big. This is a very similar idea. You're not supposed to make too much of a big deal about something. But when you bet against someone, it's like you're saying, no, we aren't just having like some kind of disagreement. I'm calling you out. I say you are going to be definitely wrong. And this, I think he's right about this as well, which is that most people don't really want the stakes to be that high. They were just having a fun little conversation, and they think any conversation, like what if you had a conversation with, anyone who's like a high stat, you have a conversation with like Barack Obama, you could get Barack Obama for like the podcast or something. You're just kind of thinking like, I'm talking to Barack Obama or whatever. You don't even really care what's going on. But if someone says you are wrong about this, that's big. Yes. So yeah, there's lots of these. Oh, this is another one. He's got a whole list here, but some of these are not that great. Like I think I appreciate his list, but I'm not gonna go to bat for some of these. But here's another one: greed. We often try to give the impression that we talk mainly to benefit our listeners. This is a sacred activity. So he's saying, like, when you talk, we're trying to make it seem like we're such a great guy to have around. You always want to hear Paul's opinion. What a smart guy. But then if you offer to bet, it makes it look like you are getting something selfish and private out of this. So you're an untrustworthy guy. You're, because think about it, if you're going to win money betting, you kind of want to trick everyone into thinking that, oh no, Hillary Clinton really won't win the election. And then you place the bet, and then you're like, oh, actually, I know that she will. This makes you into kind of like a weird person, So these are many reasons. But yeah, he's got a whole little list here. But this is not just, there's much more to it than that. I think a lot of it is that a lot of people don't want, like, the person you would have to get permission from is, like, you get permission from the government. What if I said we can have, it's the exact same thing as with the CEO. I say we have this prediction market. It works great. They would say,
But do you think the government's thought of that? Like,
I think it's I think something like this has happened on like a subconscious level. There was another thing called the policy analysis market that was like in whatever 2003 or something. And the guy who made the website, he did what every website person does, similar to this the layer 2 infographic. Or it's like they're trying to make, they're thinking, how can I make this? How can I get this out here? I got to get my message out. So they highlighted some contracts that were like people betting on, will this guy get assassinated, or how many soldiers will die, or something. So they were like, this is going to really pop. This is going to go all around the internet, which it did. And people they become very uncomfortable. If you bet on certain things, there's this idea of taboo trade-offs, where a trade-off is so bad, you shouldn't even be thinking about it. Shouldn't even be thinking about doing it. And one is, of course, if you're making money when people die, this makes it kind of seem as though your loyalty is suddenly now divided between things that we all want, sacred things we all want, and like you can make money. So that was a bad day for prediction markets, because people called their senator. That one guy basically killed what was that guy's name? I'll get a multiple choice, but that one guy basically killed the project. The guy who was very pro Snowden, and I was like, great. I still hate you. But I don't remember his name. I'm good. I'm happy. I'm happier for it. I wish I could just forget about him completely. But they like killed this idea, and so that's something where they made it illegal. But this was again, it's only because it works so well that I think there's some kind of underlying overlap between why it's so stigmatized and why it is actually one of the greatest ideas in the world.
Is the code base open?
Of course. Bitcoin Hive Mind, we have that. The C++ version is out there. We're going to wait until the Rust version works before releasing it.
Okay.
World.
And will it be tied in with the drive chains?
Yeah, of course. It will be a sidechain, and it will be a BIP300 sidechain, and of course, anything. The cool thing, this also is all open source for free.
That's why you're doing drive chains, right?
Yes, this is the whole reason why I got into sidechains at all. Was
we don't need anything else.
The prediction market idea, and I just thought that Blockstream would do it, but they never did, and that's the story. And that's the story I've always told for 8 years, and that's the truth. That's how I got into it, but it wasn't really like I got into it, and then I kind of realized like this is a winning idea, and all the arguments against it are nonsense.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until, let me tell you a lightning story, when I really started to think, oh, I must double down on sidechains, because it's about custodial lightning. And I believe this is a February 2018, something like that. So this was, I mean, it was like, well, now this would be 5 years ago or more.
So what was the story?
The story is I was hanging out with some Bitcoiners. It hadn't quite like there was like a mixed group. This is a weird situation where you had some like Bitcoin Cash open-minded, large blocker-ish, and then some who were just like solo my Bitcoin Cash, whatever. So it was like I have like a mixed. It was big, huge party, and this new wallet had come out, and I believe that it was it Blue Wallet or was it Wallet of Satoshi? It kind of doesn't matter, but it was one of those. And people said this was going around this big part. This was a huge party. This was like a big event at this giant. We'd taken over this huge hotel, and it was going around. People were having fun. We were drinking, whatever. They're like, "Hey, there's this new Lightning app on your phone. It's great. It's called whatever." I think it was. If I had to bet my life on
Blue Wallet.
I would say Blue Wallet.
Wallet.
Was that it? I hope that was it. So they said, whatever it was, this was it. And then it was like, people were like, oh, this is great. Lightning is amazing. I love Lightning. This is the beginning of the I love Lightning. Like, it was spreading like wildfire around this party. And they were like, there's enormous peer pressure to install this. So I was like, okay, wait a minute. I don't want to install something on my phone. I'm like a Bitcoiner. I'm not just going to. But then the peer pressure was so much. I installed it on my phone. And I was like, receive. Okay. I was like, I installed it on my phone. I know that I had not unlocked any phone because I know how Lightning works. I know I have to open a channel, blah, blah, blah. Now, Fiatjaf probably knows where this is going, where I downloaded this wallet and I hit receive. And in my head, I was like, question mark, because so I held up the QR code and the person sent me like 200 sats or something, and I got it, and they're like, you see, it confirms instantly, and I said, oh, did you open a channel or because I was like, I didn't open a channel, so, and
it's
they were
custodial,
like,
right?
And they were like, what's a channel? And this is like a big Bitcoiner. And then I was like, is it custodial? And then they were like, what's custodial? So it was apparent that everyone at the party didn't know what was going on. But it was kind of like, so we have multiple levels of like, the first level is custodial is much worse than real Lightning. Okay. But then another thing is, it's terrible if the wallet won't tell you in advance that whether or not it is custodial or not. And then even the third level, even worse than that, is the end user doesn't even know the difference. They have no idea what's going on. So that's when I was like, this seems like it's headed for trouble, which of course it was. So that was my thoughts. That was when I was kind of like, I kind of just got involved with sidechains because I thought prediction markets are cool. And then I was analyzing the arguments against them. And then in 2016, I published, and I was at scaling 3. And I was like, by the way, we could scale with sidechains. People say that you can't, but they're wrong. You easily can. You just ignore everything. Then after that, people said, well, what about mining? Blah, blah, blah. So that's when I invented blind merge mining in January 2017. And then I was kind of just working on it. I was kind of heads down working on that. And I was working on other stuff too. I like to just write stuff on my blog. I just do whatever I want. So I was doing like different stuff. I had only published the idea of drivechains. I had been working on the prediction markets thing until like late 2016 or something. And it wasn't until 2017 that I invented blind merge mining. And then I decided, okay, we'll actually build this. So we kind of just started. So I was like, okay, I'll work on this. We'll see what other people do. And then that was 2018 right after. And I was like, oh, I guess, Lightning is, what's going to happen with Lightning ? So, and then other people say, oh, channel factories, L2. And kind of, again, this is the most important thing to keep in mind. Everyone is a bullshitter. So they would just say L2. And I would be like, okay, like, I guess that means something to someone. I'm working on my own thing. It's not later that you realize, okay, L2 means like, it's kind of cool, but L2 means that we can't do the punishment. So that means that it's a heads, I win, tails, I break even situation, which is probably not good. So it probably makes these things are like not only not helping, but many of them are just useless or But then with
It
no
has
L2,
other
you're going to
problems.
have
Like
the
the
endlessly
L2,
growing
L2,
state.
the idea of L2 is that would be so much simpler that you could do these channel factors and other for stuff on top. It would be much easier. But then someone realized that you can't really do it in the simpler way because something, the time lock interferes with the channel updates in a way that you have to introduce a bunch of complexity for it to work. And
Yeah, I may not remember exactly what it is, but it's something I remember Matt Corallo had a thing where there's like this endless blow up of like factorial states or something that is like unfixable with the channel factories. But I
no,
shouldn't say stuff like that without just, but I read something.
that I don't know. Well,
The factories already don't work because if someone doesn't within the factory, you can create or destroy as many channels as you like. However, if anyone wants to settle, or you need to get everyone to sign to like refresh it or something, if any one of those people just dies or falls asleep or something, the whole thing is ruined. And it's the idea of onboarding people via channel factories is horrendous, because when you onboard them, they're going to start with 0 coins. So now they have no reason not to just like forget about this or lose their password or whatever. And yeah, I don't think that idea is viable at all. I think that idea is not good. I think
no, onboarding people, it's always said it's just custodial, like, because they're like, if you have 5 people and you onboard a 6th, that 6 has no control of anything because the funds are on a multi-sig of the first 5.
Of the first
so
5.
The 6th person doesn't have any control. So
well, I think
this was stated.
It might be another Mev thing where I went like 5 moves ahead and just assumed that it was going somewhere. I thought when they said onboarding via channel factories, they mean like groups of people, 50 people will all join at a time, and there'll be like one Michael Saylor, and he'll be like opening heroically channels, like 49, and then him, and they'll just be everyone else will have 0, and then he'll have like this stuff, and that's how it'll all be. The onboarding will be like 43 bytes per person times 50, and you go on like a calendar link. You schedule an appointment to open your channel with Michael Saylor, and he fronts you the liquidity, like that's where I thought people were going with it. Even still, though, even in the absurd situation in the limit, which is literally not achievable, but of like the entire block always being used, the channels last forever. They never need to be refreshed. The most absurd situation where every single Bitcoin block is just one channel factory being opened with one Michael Saylor, super rich Bitcoiner, every time, every 10 minutes, 24/7. Still, it takes like 6.5 years or something to onboard 8 billion people to the live. But that thing is nowhere near achievable. The true rate is like 1/10. Take like 60 years or something. It's not for 8 billion people. Some people say, "Oh, we don't need 8 billion people." Some people say, like, for example, another thing Michael Saylor has said many times is that everyone will have thousands of channels. So that's another thing where you're like, doesn't really know that every channel is a risk, every channel is a headache, every channel divides the liquidity. It's like, so these are other things that he said. But again, he's new. He knows an awful lot for someone who's only like a 3rd-year Bitcoiner or something.
So with all the good stuff on layer 2, you've created an organization called Layer 2, right? Layer 2 Labs.
Layer 2 Labs. My view is that the sidechain is the real Layer 2, in fact.
What's the Layer 3?
And I think that actually people will ultimately come around to that point of view, and then people look up old videos and they won't believe. They'll be like, what was going on? It'll be like when we look up old like pets.com or something, we'll think like, really? That's what they thought the internet was?
Yes, because but by that stage you're in the water, you're in the environment, and then what is, you just know what is around you, and people can't see that. They don't have the creative ability to forecast and bring that into their lives and change the perspectives. They can't do that. They can't do that.
It's certainly not a foregone conclusion that I'll succeed.
Oh, sure.
But I think like the relative costs and benefits are just like very, very favorable. Like I don't understand why the miners can steal is very dumb, because it's not your coins that can be stolen. So let these other people take the risk. And it's also like it's just clear to me that people have so much disagreement over what the L1 blockchain should contain, and people are so creative. Individual software developer, if they were empowered to do they can create their own piece of software. They could be the CEO of their own sidechain with no bureaucracy. Just think of how different it would have been for Jeremy Rubin or for Roger Ver or for Vitalik or for whatever, Ricardo Spagni or whatever, anything.
Yeah.
So it would be very, very different.
And the value they generate just works towards the ecosystem.
In the same team.
Yeah.
We want everyone like in the same tent. We want network effects. We want Metcalfe's law. We want positivity. We want creativity. We want risk taking.
Yeah.
It's just obvious to me that nothing. What in the world ever worked that had to be justified? It's the things that work are always just someone has the idea and they just try the idea, and often it's ridiculed. So if this kind of means like if your idea is not being ridiculed, it probably sucks. And that is partly again why I just think like the idea is clearly good. The arguments against it, all of which were easy to foresee in the original November 2015 post. You could foresee them. I said this is why it looks like the miners can steal, but they really can't. They really won't. And then the mining thing also, again, like if people actually explain when they explained what it was they had a problem with, it was very easy for me to just come up with blind merge mining. The reason why I can't solve their other problems is because the other problems aren't real. They don't
it's just fabricated nonsense.
Yeah, it's just like it's like a chat GPT 1. Words are just showing up and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. I mean.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see a world. I'd love to see a world where you've got like a small, very small core base. Maybe, for example, using libBitcoin. You strip out all the nonsense. None of that taproot nonsense. You just strip it down to bare essentials. You've got one addressing scheme. You can transfer value to and from, and then you specialize in lifting up and down into side chains. And you keep that core base as simple as possible so that people can understand it and maintain it. Maybe And then from there,
I think Taproot. I think it was a mistake to spend so much time on Taproot. But again, I'm a pluralist, so I think we should just do everything. But yeah, I don't understand Taproot. You could see the adoption was very, very low. We seem to be specializing in things that, again, it's the whole thing has evolved away from.
They want to inspire boredom.
Sorry,
to people.
Say again.
Sorry.
No. They want to inspire boredom, like the most boring things.
Exactly. It's not like it's because if something's boring or very convoluted, it won't be criticized. So think about it. It was so difficult to criticize Taproot. So that's how it evolved into being the thing that was tried. So whereas my thing, it is easier to criticize. That's because it's actually part of it is simple enough for people to actually understand, and so it becomes.
I don't really think people understand. I think most people don't understand it. I think people think like I've seen it many times. Like people supporting the idea, and they think that somehow the merge mining is related to the securing of the coins, and
they just want to bike shit, man. They just want to bike shit.
I agree. No, but he's saying something else, which is I also have to point out, which is this is similar to the Lightning thing, which is that many of the people who are big supporters of the idea, it's also clear to me that they don't understand it, which puts me in a weird situation. And even there have been many times when I've been like, I've been working on the code or working with people on the code. And also it's clear that we also like had like a very different understanding of like what so it does put me in a kind of a strange point of view where I actually think like it's very, very, very few. There are some people who clearly do understand like the whole thing. But I think the way people decide whether or not they like something is more like, it's like more about antibodies. People have a thing where they think like, if it helps the large blockers get what they want, it must be bad. And similarly, a lot of the people who care about drive chain, I think they understand like these people are hypocrites. They're not real critics. They are just They're not real critics. They are just talking for their own benefit, and they don't really know. They're saying BS, and so, but they know that the idea that Paul would spend so much time on this and release real software, it must be good. So people have like this. It's like a feedback loop with a thermostat in their house. They detect something and they say, okay, now I know that one of these people is wrong and the other is right. They look for some sort of thing. But very few people have actually, like, very few people read the BIP, very few people download the software. That's partly, we should make the software easier to use, but it's relatively easier. I mean, who has downloaded the BIP 119 software or the 118 software? Like, it doesn't exist. So, but that's a similar thing with Jeremy Rubin, where it was 119, and the idea is, like, people just decided Jeremy really wants this change, it must be bad. But they didn't know anything about it. And even the people who were pro, they were pro for some other reason. Everyone's got like some kind of ulterior motive. So I don't know if Fiatjaf, this puts me in a kind of weird ethical spot, because if I discover that I'm the only one who really understands the idea, then on one hand, do I just say, well, I'll let everyone make their decisions however they want to. That's between them and their God. However they take whatever risks with their, because all of us have imperfect information. But then it's kind of like, but we have some new explanation stuff that should be good. We're updating our website soon. We're going to have lots of stuff that's going to be great demos and things. So we have more sidechains. We're going to have the large block sidechain. We're going to have the Namecoin sidechain. We're going to have eventually the prediction market sidechain in Rust. We're going to have the large block sidechain is going to have fraud proofs.
I don't know. I think people don't care about these test nets.
I care.
I made a space chain on testnet, on Signet, on Bitcoin, and like I had like 10 people trying it.
No, Peter, Fiatjaf, I care deeply. Like, as soon as I tried all of that stuff, I was like, okay, this is not bullshit. And then I start reading code. I'm like, okay, this is, I can understand.
But if you can read code, you're already privileged white person.
Privileged. I fucking work my ass off to be able to do that. Fuck off.
Oh, I wanted to ask another. I think we should end this because I must sleep. But I wanted to ask how exactly HiveMind is supposed to make cheap talk expensive. Is it like that you would force people to bet on their ideas, otherwise they should shut up, or what is it?
So it has a couple of meanings, but basically it's like there's an important question, like we vote this political party out, what will happen to the unemployment rate or something.
Yeah, but there are journalists talking about it on the television.
Instead of people just blah blah blah, they're just talking about it. Well, it'll literally be two numbers. It'll be like, here's the number with the red team, here's the blue team, red team, blue team, unemployment number. And now, if you think that number is wrong, you can make money by betting against those numbers, and you'll make money as long as you aren't wrong. If you're wrong, you'll lose money. But other than that, this is a magic money tree for you. The other meaning is, of course, that we have to have the oracle work, and so I have a peer-to-peer oracle. They also have to tell the truth. But I want to explain something very important about the design, which is that this is very easy. This is something that is so imagine we bet on an election outcome. I say Trump will win again in 2024. And today, this is very unclear, but this is when we lock it in. We lock it in the betting. We create the market first. It's on a very defined issue. And then we do the betting now while it's unclear. The oracle part doesn't resolve until after the election is over, when it is substantially more clear. Well, of course, the last time was of course a little bit of a snafu, and it ruins my example. But mostly after the election, it's very clear who won. And so that task is a completely different task. So we have the contract go from before the event to after the event, and we resolve it afterwards. However, since it's all on the blockchain, it's cryptographically referencing the same thing the whole time. So we can start the betting now while it's still unclear. And that is key. So, but you haven't. But the people bet on the topic, and the market price is the same for everyone. Everyone has to point at the same market. This is exactly what Alex B was unable to do. It's just make numbers that we could all point to. And so in the prediction market, it's just a number for whatever thing you believe.
I understand that part, but I was thinking like, how would people talk about it? Because people won't just stop talking about things.
Yes, you're right. This is part of my multi-year plan. This is, of course, extremely complicated, but basically, I don't think it would take over on day one. The prediction market world, we would want it to like get some hype somehow, like through political season or whatever it is, but that's not going to be enough by itself. It will have to start doing other things like predicting who will win the Super Bowl, like weeks in advance. Stuff like that.
I was thinking like the political commentator on television, he will still have his job. Like he won't be fired
for a while. Yes, it's ecological though.
They would
for a while, but eventually it accumulates like credibility. This institution accumulates credibility, and you can also, like the person says, they're absolutely certain that someone will win. The market is giving them 4 cents on the dollar. People won't notice the contradiction at first, but as the years go on, people will post memes. They'll say like the guy will be talking, and then it'll have like the market. It'll be like, I'm absolutely certain of this, and it's like the price will be like going down, and it'll just be ridicule eventually.
But what if he wins? There's a chance.
Oh, if he wins, because there is a chance. But this is the other problem that you run into with prediction markets, where oh my God, this is an event. Something the market gives something this happened many times when we had Intrade. The market gave a Supreme Court decision a 35% chance of happening, and it didn't happen. And then people said, wow, prediction markets are amazing. And then a second time, there was a different Supreme Court decision. It gave it like a 33% chance of happening. And it didn't happen. And people were like, wow, prediction markets are amazing. How are they doing this? And then the third time, the prediction market gave it about like a 35% chance of like the individual mandate being struck down or something. And then it was upheld that time. Third one out of three for the thing that's trading at about 33%. Third one out of three got quote wrong. And then people are like, "Oh, you see, this proves prediction markets don't work."
No, I'm not saying it's a proof that prediction markets don't work. I'm saying I was trying to think like that the guy would go on television and he would show his ticket like I betted this amount of money that I will win against the majority of the market, and then he would be able to say whatever his bullshit he's saying. And everybody will listen and say, "Oh, this guy really believes this."
Well, I have a beautiful presentation about this that I never got to give because it was COVID, canceled the venue. But the manipulation, you have these conditional markets, so you bet on two things at once, and you say the person will get elected, and the unemployment rate will go down. You bet on them both simultaneously, and that is not something that someone can. They can make a huge bet that says they can bet it all. They can amass a huge amount of money. And they bet that they will win and the unemployment rate will go down. It will make it look like they are going to win and the unemployment rate will go down. But unless they actually make the unemployment rate go down in the real world, they will lose the bet. So everyone can pile in on the other side of this bet, and they can then elect him. And then after he fails to improve society, you win the bet and you just win a geometrically increasing amount of money. And the other alternative is, of course, we elect the guy and he does make the world a better place and he makes the unemployment rate really low, in which case that was the whole point from the beginning. So that was the whole point. So who even cares? So that's the
okay.
But yeah, the prediction markets topic is a very big topic.
Fiatjaf, does that conclude your line of questions?
I've got to eat my little food here. I'm going to get really hungry.
Okay, quickly. Should we wrap this up now?
Let's wrap it up. Great conversation, though, guys.
Cool,
been having fun.
So, two people I respect greatly. Respect worthy indeed. Thank you very much for coming on. All right, let me end this.